Hello, everybody. Good evening. This is Mayor Harvey. We're just about to start our meeting. We were waiting on a few things to happen before we do that. So, but I see that the clerk has said that we do have a quorum. So we will start. I'd like to call to order City Commission meeting dated Wednesday, June the 2nd. The people who are in attendance will rise for our invocation led by Commissioner Williams and followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please rise, please?
Eternal God, our Heavenly Father, we come and we say thank you for this day. We thank you for this beautiful city in which we live. And Father God, we come now to do the business of this city. We ask that you give us wisdom, that you give us knowledge and understanding. Father, we ask that you just bless us, bless those that are absent and those that are on their way. Father, we ask that you continue to guide us and direct us. We ask these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I must say, wow, glad to be back in the house again, as they say. Glad to see everyone here. You can actually see them. I know we're not into that touching thing, but reach out and touch somebody physically to see their smiling faces and also to discern what we have to do here in the city of Brunswick for the business of the city. We have Commissioner Casey, you on board?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our Mayor Pro Tem will be joining us shortly. We have Commissioner Julie Martin to my right, and to her right is Commissioner Vincent Williams. So we'll get right into our meeting. Our first meeting is a public hearing finance. Before I get going, is there anything we need to add or delete to this agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if we thought about this, but I don't think we've publicly introduced our new city manager to the public other than because I don't think we had an in-person meeting since she's been here.
Wow, you know, it's so funny. She's been here over a year. However, our city manager, would you please rise and be recognized? This is Ms. Regina McDuffie, our new city manager. We say new because she's new to in here, but she's been here a year and doing fabulous things. And we're so grateful that she has adopted our city and doing great things, moving us forward. So thank you so very much, our new city manager. All right, moving right along. Public hearing finance. Item number 1, City of Brunswick proposed fiscal year 2021/2022 budget. Oh, our city manager, Ms. McDuffie, is presenting. The floor is yours, madam.
I am there. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present the budget for the fiscal year 2022. My participation in this budget has been a little bit more than it was last year. I came in right when the budget was being approved. I am happy to say that we are very much proud of the budget that's being presented, and I'm going to try and share my screen at this time to hopefully get the information. What are you all seeing? Okay. Can you see that highlights?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I'd like to start out by stating the highlights for the 2022 budget. The budget is balanced. This is the proposed budget, which was presented to the mayor and commissioners on May 5th. It was subsequently tentatively approved for presentation in the paper for this public hearing. The budget is proposed at $17,180,507, which is a 7% increase over the the approved budget for 2021. The budget includes a pay increase for all full-time city employees of 2%, and it also added personnel, approximately 3.5 full-time equivalents, to enhance our technological operations, to support our HR and recruitment and retention efforts, to promote the development in our neighborhoods and revitalization, and also to support the city's efforts to maximize and capitalize on federal funding. Other increases in the budget includes the health insurance premiums, which we put in health insurance premiums. As you know, the city is self-insured, so we basically pay all of the claims. We are going to look at ways in which we can reduce our health insurance cost, especially in the prescription drug cost, which we have seen has escalated in the past. So we put in money to cover our health insurance so that we would not fall short during the fiscal year. We also put in funding for housing initiatives, and that includes funding for demolitions and funding for the land bank. There are a lot of technology upgrades, including the maintenance and upkeep of the new website, which came live yesterday, and we will be presenting other software upgrades and hardware upgrades to make sure that the city system is safe and it's working efficiently and effectively to support our operations and our employees. We have a lot of funding for our infrastructure maintenance, which is one of the things that's really important, is looking at our drainage systems. We are investing a lot in our drainage through our SPLOST, and we want to make sure that we are doing and making every effort to keep our drains clean and open, and we have additional funding in the budget for that. We also have funding in the budget for goats, which I was really excited about because they said we had goats a few years ago and they did a really good job of cleaning out some of the areas that the workers could not get to. So we will try and employ the goats this year to help with our efforts to put forth as much as we can to, again, maintain our drains. The budget includes equipment upgrades and replacements. Most of that, of course, is in public works and public safety, and I will go through some of that summary information later. The budget proposes to use none of the city's fund balance, but it does propose to use $500,000 of the American Rescue Plan funding as revenue recovery. The budget schedule started in March. We have, again, did the presentation to the council, the commission on May 5th. The tentative approval was on May 19th, and we are now at the June 2nd public hearing on the budget. The budget was presented and provided to the public through the clerk's office, as well as on the city's website since that time. I'm not going to go through all of the details of the budget. The highlights mainly our general fund revenues, of course, and I'll show you. Let's see if I can turn this chart around. Looking at the chart, as I said, the general fund revenue is $17.1 million. 39% of that is property taxes. Approximately 40% of it at $6.8 million is estimated for sales taxes. Other taxes is approximately $1.9 million or 11% of the budget. And then we have the other fees, fines, license and permits, and intergovernmental that makes up another 11%, approximately 11% of the budget. So of course, what the main aspect of our revenues is this is the general fund revenues, which support our public safety, our general government administration, and other areas of operation of the budget. And one of the important things I always like to make note of is the fact that the property tax side of our budget is kind of the stable side of our budget. The sales tax, of course, is very volatile. So I always look at how balanced that is. And at this point, they're pretty much equal. In looking at our general fund expenditures, I'm having to rotate my screen. Sorry about that. Again, the budget is balanced at $17.1 million, and I'll go to the chart again to show you that the service areas that the budget supports, approximately, let's see, 46% of the budget is for public safety, which is fire and police. We have another 14% of the budget for public works, parks and recreation with 4%, planning and development 4%, general government is 16%, and government administration of 8%. In looking at our personnel in the proposed budget, the cost of personnel is approximately $11 million. And of that, 75% is directly goes to salaries. That's $8.2 million for salaries for the general workforce for the city. Health insurance encompasses about $1 million, and retirement is right at $1 million as well. The other areas are, of course, Social Security and workers' comp and those type things. And looking at our full-time personnel, the proposed budget includes 208, well, the current count is 208 full-time employees and 9 part-time employees. We are asking for an increase in the number of full-time employees for the city's operation going into the next fiscal year. As you can see, based on the chart, approximately 43 people are in our public works department, 42 in our fire department. I can't see how many in our police department. 21%.
81.
Let's see.
81.
81 in our police department. Thank you. 21 in our parks and recreation, and that's included in the cleanup and maintenance of the park. When you look at parks and recreation, I know people say, you know, the city doesn't administer the recreation portion, but we do have people in our neighborhood services and in our parks that maintain our parks. 12 government administration and 5 general administration, and 8 people in our planning and development. The budget includes, as I stated, 3.5 full-time equivalency positions being proposed to be added to the city's workforce. One would be making a part-time person who's currently in the HR or human resources to be a full-time position, adding a full-time position to the IT department, as well as making a part-time position there. So that department would have 3 positions versus the 1.5 that it has now. Economic development, adding 1 position in that area. That area only has 1 position, and this would have 2 full-time positions in that area, and also adding a plan reviewer in planning and development. As I stated before, the budget does include a proposed 2% salary adjustment, which added an additional $178,000 to the fiscal year budget as proposed. That is my review of the budget, Mayor. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I also have my finance director here, Ms. Kathy Niels, who may provide assistance as well.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioners, are there any questions? I know we've had this plan for this budget, proposed budget, for quite a while. We looked through it a couple of times. She's gone over it a couple of times with us as well. And we have an opportunity to address some of the items that you think may need to be amended or adjusted. Also, I want to tell everybody too that we're getting used to this is our first meeting back in City Hall. It's taking us give us a little time to get settled and get straightened out here. So this new normal will be something that we got to get used to as well. So bear with us as we go through this. If we seem a little awkward at times, that's basically because we are trying to get our new normal settled down. City manager, I have one question, and that is, and maybe the finance director will answer too as well. What's the CPI and what's going forward? I want to keep up with our increases to our employees, so they would at least could stay in step with that.
I am not sure exactly what the CPI is. As I stated, the budget has a 2% increase.
2%,
What
okay.
I would like to do though is look at how we end up this fiscal year. And I'm always, looking at what our year-end budget looks like to see if there's any money that could be added for additional salary increases. So that's always going to be a consideration.
I know we used to have a budget adjustment at the mid-year, and then we just do some things that time. And maybe that may be a good time if we can look at it mid-year and see where we think we're going to fall out, and if we have to do some salary adjustments or whatever we need to do, we can do it then that period of time.
Yes, like I said, at that point in time, we will know what the current fiscal year end is, and we'll also have a better idea of our tax situation. So that I think would be appropriate.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question. The pages that we were handed this evening, do they replace the exact same pages in our binder, or?
This is to be added to your binder, and I will go through that during the meeting.
Okay, so it's in addition.
The first briefly we just gave you the general fund, that is all of the other funds.
Okay, so it just goes in there as further information. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to take this opportunity also to just state that some of our employees are here and some of them, department heads
Okay.
are here and some of them are online. And I want to thank them for their efforts during the budget process. They really presented good budgets. They had good justification for some of the things that were placed in. And I feel like, we are all working to invest more into our departments and our operations to get more done.
Well, thank you to your staff, to the directors as well, for what they do to make us better. So we thank you for that too, as well. Are there any other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I was looking, it's right after the, let's see, this budget schedule for 2020. It doesn't have a page number. It's right in the front. But I was looking at the interest income for the past few years, and then I looked at this year, and we're down, I guess, what is that, 82%?
Really bad right now.
Okay, so
There's
you,
no interest being generated on the money that we have. So we were trying to be very conservative, but hopeful that it would increase, through the course of the year. But we tried to be very conservative because it has been just really at the bottom.
okay, I kind of thought,
On the same balance roughly that we have now, pre-pandemic on all the funds we had, we were making about $25,000 a month. We're making about
okay, I can't, yeah, that's a big difference. I that's why I was kind of concerned. I was like, wow, that is a big drop. Yeah. Okay. That answers my question.
I got one question too, on page 7 of 67.
Page 67.
Page 7 of 67.
Oh, okay.
No, in the regular book. Group insurance for, I'm thinking that's the city commission.
Yes.
Why is that did it go up and
Well, again, what I stated was that we are budgeting to pay more into our health insurance. So we applied it and the insurance did go up in certain areas, but what we did was put in insurance. And that's the premium that's paid into our fund. And what we're trying to do is just try and pay more into our fund so that we can support if we have any increase in our costs.
Oh, so we're paying it forward, basically, in a sense.
Trying to, yes.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you. I figured that one out. I want to thank you for a good budget. It's very readable as well for us to go through it. Are there any further questions or comments as we
Mr.
go?
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment, please.
We have to sit for a while before we approve it?
Well, where we are now is if there's any public input for the budget.
That's right, it is a public hearing, my bad, I'm sorry.
So any public comment, and basically we will present the final budget on June 16th.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I apologize, everybody, again, this is new normal. Is there no further questions? Commissioner has stated this is a public hearing. We open our floor up to our public here who would like to speak with comments concerning the budget. I imagine you all have had an opportunity to take a look at it. So you have anything like to comment or whatever, please come forward, state your name, your address, and I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes to talk. And Madam Clerk, let me know if there's anyone in the chat would like to speak to as well.
We have a taker.
Name and your address, please, sir.
My name's Ivan Figueroa, address 1000 Union here in Brunswick. Thank you for the opportunity to address the mayor and commissioners on the budget. I've taken a look at the budget and, you've got lots and lots of needs and a very limited resource. It's a very difficult task you have in front of you. But I do have a request today. My request is simple. The answer is not, and it's revolving public safety. I understand that the city is committed to public safety. However, we do have a significant public safety staff shortage. My request is just simply that you redouble your efforts and find and hire the best public safety staff available. I understand right now that there is an employee shortage that's affecting businesses as well as government. Please take a look at pay rates compared to, surrounding jurisdictions around us. I know you've done that, but take a look at it again. Take a look at making sure that, they have all of the most available and best equipment and tools, because having the best equipment and tools available not only makes it more attractive for people to come into the city and work for you, but it also helps maintain them and keep them as employees. So my request is real simple. Just please put a very big focus on filling the positions for public safety. And I appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comment. Really appreciate that. And we will take that into consideration along with what we're already doing about trying to staff our public safety officials, employees. Being the leaders of this city, we want all our employees to have the right tools to do their job and do a great job. This commission is dedicated to paying them accordingly and to ensure that they will be well welcome. They will want to stay here in the city and work for the city.
Mayor, can I address that?
Yes, you can.
I have almost daily conversations with the police chief on his recruitment efforts, and we certainly are paying very close attention to what happens in other communities as well. The budget supports the recruitment efforts by adding someone in our human resources department that can not only help with the police department's recruitment efforts, but also, once we have employees on board, work closer with making sure we do what we need to do to retain those employees. And that's one of the reasons that position is being proposed as a full-time position.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward and speak on behalf of our budget that we are presenting for our next fiscal year? Madam Clerk, is anyone in the chat room asking to speak? Commissioner, anything you want to add before I close this out?
Cornell, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'd like to just say that there is something very positive in this budget, and it's under the general revenues. And that is something that we don't discuss very often, is that one of the great things the city of Brunswick has accomplished is that we don't really have any long-term debt. And I think that's so positive and really needs to be pointed out here, that if there's a sense of pride for us, that we've really watched our finances very close. And we have approved for a long-term, for a loan to help with Magnolia Park. And in that responsive manner that we've taken towards no long-term debts, and certainly have helped us with a great percentage rate for that loan. So I think it's really worth saying. And one other thing, we just had a comment up there. I've always said that I think at every budget meeting, if you make the city of Brunswick clean and you make the city of Brunswick safe, that you will have a city that everybody will be proud of and lots of people will want to live here. And I still believe that. And one of the things that I want to make a comment about in this budget is that I think that we're spending a lot of money on revising codes, and I think we need to back that revision to those codes up with the staff to be able to enforce and to have the best people that we can have in planning and codes, and have the hands-on that perhaps we haven't had in the past. So that is one place that I see that I would like to see us look a little harder, along with being sure that we get the departments fully staffed, namely the police department. And I appreciate everything that's been done here. This really looks like a solid budget, and a lot of thought has gone into it. But again, when you think of the trials and the tribulations we've had, and we have no long-term debt, I think it's just awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cason, for your comments. Any other commissioner have comments before we move right along?
I just wanted to comment on what, or piggyback on what Johnny said, as well as what Mr. Figueroa, I believe that was his last name, said. If you've taken an in-depth dive into this budget, then the efforts that have been put forth to increase safety in the city is there. It's evident. The pay raises, the consistencies, the increase in salaries, the review of salaries that was done before we ever even got to this process on the budget. All of that stuff is continuous. All of that stuff is being done. Equipment, that's one of the major parts of this budget, is to afford better equipment, not just to the police department, but to the fire department and to public works, to all of the departments that need these upgrades in equipment. So I think if you've really taken a deep dive into this budget, you will see those things, line items on this budget. And so I congratulate and I tell the staff, administration, finance department, CM, the ACM, the chiefs, all of the department heads, that they really did an awesome job on this budget to make sure that all of the needs have been pinpointed, recruiting efforts, for retention of employees, for the awarding incentives of employees, and those things go into the incentives, go into the retention of retaining a good workforce. So I think all of that stuff has been addressed and continues to be addressed. And I just want to say I think we're moving forward with all of the things that are concerned of the citizens. This budget has been put out there for all of the citizens to be able to give their input. And so if you've not done that, I will urge all of the citizens to go in, take a look at this budget and give your input before we move on this budget, to adopt this budget and move forward with it. We always have room for amendments, but if we can catch it on the flip side of it, on the front side of it, then we won't have to come back and do so many amendments. But I think that they did an awesome job on this budget.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else?
Bless you.
Okay, that concludes our public hearing. Since there's no one in the chat, as Madam Clerk said, and we only had one individual who came up and speak comments on the budget. However, the budget will be available for the public still. We will not vote to adopt the budget tonight. It will still be made available. As Mayor Pro Tem said, you have an opportunity to make your requests, amendments, and so forth if need be.
You know, I do have one more thought that if I may make that, it's just an ask really. On the authorized personnel pie chart,
Yes.
Regina, the Public Works has got 43 people.
Yes.
And does that show the correction crews?
No,
Or
it's not.
is that in temporary?
No, it does not. If the commission would like for those to be added, then we can try and develop the full-time equivalency for those positions and add as a separate category.
We can discuss that later. I don't think at this time, Madam.
I'm comfortable with it. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, just a question right now. It can be for further discussion later. Thank you, Commissioner Kaysen. All right, as our agenda is a long agenda this evening, we will move right along with our agenda. Finally, our budget, as I said before, will be available for the public. And anyone who would like to make some comments or suggestions before it be adopted by the City Commission. All right, item number 2, recognition, presentations, and awards. Recognition from the United States Representative Earl L. Buddy Carter, recognizing 250th anniversary of the founding of the city of Brunswick, Georgia. Representative Carter sent a document of the official record, congressional record, where he stood up and recognized Brunswick, Georgia's 250th anniversary. It's called the Sesquicentennial anniversary. Sesquicentennial. It's a long word to say, but it recognizes 250 years of being in existence for the city of Brunswick. To that end, our assistant city manager has been going back, looking at some of the ordinances that we have made over the lifetime of Brunswick being founded and through the records and recognizing that the Brunswick is doing well, and so we will categorize or make sure we continue to keep those records so anyone can see what Brunswick was doing back in the day, as they say. But anyhow, Representative Earl Buddy Carter stood up and read this into the congressional record, said, proceeding and debates of the 117th Congress, first edition, volume 167, Washington, April the 20th, 2021, number 68, recognizing Brunswick, Georgia 250th anniversary. The Honorable Earl L. Buddy Carter of Georgia in the House of Representatives. He stated, Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize the 250th anniversary of the founding of Brunswick, Georgia. Located on the southeast coast of Georgia, Mark Carr was the first European settler to live in what is now the city of Brunswick. In 1771, the Council of the Royal Province of Georgia ordered the city of Brunswick to be laid out on Carr's land. The city was platted by Mr. George McIntosh. He therefore copied the overthought plan of Savannah. Since its founding, the city of Brunswick has overcome fires, of which we know, hurricanes, of which we've had, wars, and pandemics, and has flourished as a coastal city. Despite such trying times in the past year due to the pandemic, businesses has continued to emerge and the spirit of the people continued to shine. It has been 250 years since the momentous decision to establish Brunswick as a city. And I, Earl Buddy Carter, want to recognize the great citizens and public officials of Brunswick who have made it and continue to make it a tremendous community and a place to live. Let this anniversary serve as a reminder of all that we have gone through in the past and how capable we are of making it through these trying times together. It's signed by Honorable Representative Earl L. Buddy Carter from the Georgia District 1. So we want to thank him for doing that. Let's give him a round of applause. Doing that on behalf of all the citizens of Brunswick here in Glenn County. Also, as we move right along, next item is appointments, authority board and committee appointments. First appointment that we have here on my agenda is for the Downtown Development Authority. There's 2 appointments to fill the expired term of Rita Spalding. Her term expires 6/1/2021, and Lisa Jordan, her term expired 6/1/2021. Before I appoint, is the chairman of the Downtown Development Authority here? Yes. The treasurer. Okay. Okay. All right. Good. So we have 4 names that have been submitted. Lisa Jordan is asking to be reappointed. Myrna Scott Amos is asking to be appointed. Michael Kaufman is asking to be appointed, and Mr. Richard Baker is asking to be appointed to fill these 2 names, 2 vacancies that's coming up. It appears Ms. Rita Spalding is not seeking another term.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint and submit Lisa Jordan and Michael Kaufman to be appointed for those expired terms.
Second.
There's been motion and second for the appointment of those 2 names to fill those 2 vacancies on the Downtown Development Authority. Are there any questions or comments?
I would just make a comment that it's great that we've got these many folks willing to submit their names, and I think if they stay tuned and are willing to continue forward as other board positions might be vacated or expired, that would be great.
I have one question. If Mr. Kaufman, Michael Kaufman is already treasurer, how that works?
Mhm.
The secretary treasurer to appoint 2 appointments. The secretary and treasurer, two members that don't have to be actual board members. Mr. Kaufman is an advisory board member that's an ad hoc committee.
Okay.
So those two positions don't need to be board members.
Okay. All right.
How many terms has Ms. Jordan served?
Question about how many terms Ms. Jordan has served?
Pardon me?
Question is how many terms has Ms. Jordan served?
She served the end of a term of a member who resigned.
Yeah.
So she has only been on the board for a little over a year.
Okay, I'm just saying, I'm asking it because we want to be able, make sure we afford other people the
Some new
opportunity.
people, right.
Yeah.
And that's why Ms. Spalding decided that she didn't want to renew because she felt that she should move off for somebody else. But Ms. Jordan has served just a partial term.
Yeah, I think both of them are gonna be assets. Well, they already are assets.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see Michael. over there.
Okay, commissioners, we have those two names, Mr. Michael Kaufman and Ms. Lisa Jordan for the two vacancies on the Downtown Development Authority. No further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposes? Hearing nothing from the opposing, I believe that motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you. So therefore, Mr. Kaufman and Ms. Jordan, although they are very familiar with the DDA, Downtown Development Authority, Madam Clerk, please make sure that they are aware of their new terms. All right, thank you. Our next appointment is the Tree Board, which is one appointment. And give me a minute. It's a new normal here.
Lisa Jordan.
Lisa, who's?
Lisa Jordan resigned. Ashby Mix Ward and Jill Wright.
Okay, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead and do that.
We have one appointment to fill the resigned resignation for Lisa Jordan for the Tree Board. We have names submitted for the appointment to be considered are Ashby Nix Worley, as well as Jill Wright, to fill the seat for Lisa Jordan.
Okay, Commissioner, you've heard Mayor Pro Tem give you the
Names for consideration.
names for consideration for the Tree Board. What's your will and pleasure?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Ashby Nix Worley to the appointment open on the Tree Board.
I want to ask a question before a second. Is either one of these individuals here tonight? Either one of them?
Jill already serves on the land bank.
Okay.
What does Ashby serve on at present?
She currently has, to my knowledge, is not serving on anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This Mr. Will Worley
Yes.
Yeah, that's what his
spouse.
Okay. All right.
I would second that.
All right, got a motion, got a second to have Ms. Ashby Worley to fill the position of the unexpired term of Ms. Lisa Jordan, who has resigned. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of Ms. Worley filling the unexpired term of Lisa Jordan for the Tree Board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposers have the same right. Hearing nothing from the opposing side, I believe the ayes have it. That motion carries. Madam Clerk, please let Ms. Worley know of her appointment on the Tree Board. Okay. Our next item is for Audit Committee. And okay. This is to fill, Mr. Kamaya Dickerson is asking to be reappointed to his term. His term ended 3/3/2021. And he's asking to be reappointed to the audit committee. He's the only name that's been submitted. Commissioners, any comments?
I'll make a motion to accept him as presented.
Second.
Motion second to accept the nomination of Kamaya Dickerson for the next another term. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposers have the same right. Hearing nothing from the opposing side, I believe the ayes have it. That motion carries. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please let Mr. Dickerson know that he has been reappointed. All right. Let's move right along. Item number 4, public hearing, land use. Number 4, conditional use petition number 21-02 from Jason Kobobs. Petition for conditional use for 3314 Johnson Circle. Location to be utilized for used motor vehicle repairs with no outdoor storage of junk vehicles. Mr. John Hunter, our city planning director, is presented.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Give me 1 second while I share my screen.
Wow, guys, pretty good. How to do that?
The application is for conditional use at 3314 Johnson Circle. The subject parcel is 0.27 acres in size with a building located with limited parking. The location has been used in the past for auto repair. The parcel is outlined in blue on the location map. I'll kind of zoom in here so y'all can see a little better on the screen. It is zoned general commercial and all surrounding parcels are zoned general commercial. The need for the conditional use permit was triggered by a change in the businesses at that location and the application for a new business license. The following uses shall be permitted on conditional basis in any general commercial zoning district subject to conditions set forth in section 23-25-4. That includes a garage for the repair and servicing of motor vehicles, provided that all operations are conducted within a fully enclosed building or buildings, and there's no open storage of wrecked vehicles, dismantled parts, or supplies visible beyond the premises. The conditional use process allows the city commission to place conditions on a parcel to make certain that the proposed uses are compatible with the surrounding uses. Based on this, the staff recommends that the following conditions, and I'm going to zoom in on this because I clarified my language a little bit. That there be no storage of wrecked vehicles, dismantled parts, or supplies visible beyond the premises, and 2, that there be no storage of vehicles, wrecked vehicles, dismantled parts, or supplies on the exterior of the premises. So anything that's being stored is being stored in the building, and that you cannot store anything on the exterior. Y'all may recall this property in the past. This is actually, I think, in the 6 years I've been here, the only conditional use that we ever brought to the city commission to revoke for a previous tenant at this location. The applicant is here this evening. I met with him and with the property owner before they submitted the application and discussed the previous issues. The owner actually put in his lease that there would be no outdoor storage at this location to help back us up in that. And the applicant was very agreeable and very interested in being a part of cleaning up that area that has been problematic in the past. The Planning and Appeals Commission held a public hearing on this application on May 12th, 2021, Discussion included questions about the issues with the previous tenants, the need to keep all operations within the building, and that no outdoor storage would be tolerated. The Planning and Appeals Commission made a recommendation in favor of granting the requested conditional use with the conditions as recommended by staff. That concludes the staff report. If you've had any questions, I'm happy to answer them. As I said, Mr. Cobos is here tonight to be able to answer any questions that you might have for him as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Questions, Commissioner?
Has
So-
the applicant conducted the same business in other areas?
I'll let him answer that. I believe so.
Good evening. Ma'am,
Good
I was
evening.
sir,
Say good evening.
I was a part of another shop. I was basically a vendor inside of another building on Cary Street, 2717 Cary Street. So not my own building per se, but when that went south, I decided it was time for me to, seek my own refuge per se and start my own business there as well. But as far as Mr. Hunter and all his descriptions, I understand the past problems with said facility, and I can assure you none of those will take place whatsoever. It's me basically, and I found a part-time helper to work 15 to 18 hours a week. So him and I can only do so much. So there's no need for us to bring in so much work to even necessitate any vehicles to be outside whatsoever.
No, that was gonna be my question, as will you ensure that if you lease this out, would you make sure that none of the storage, outdoor storage would be used either? I don't know whether you get so far, your business may expand, you may want to lease out, that's a
Mr. Mayor,
prerequisite.
I understand your question. Let me use this as a response. I've been here in Brunswick since about 2007, 2008. And since then, I used to live above Fox's Pizza. And back then there was Fox's Pizza, and I remember Tipsy's opened up. And since then, whether it's you council or another council or a committee or a board or a conglomerate or whatnot has built this city up, and I do my part to help in that. Just as today at 3:30 p.m., somebody in the back alley dropped a twin mattress and a twin box set. So my goal for this evening or tomorrow morning is to take that and dispose of it properly because it's an eyesore to the community.
Yes.
And it's the broken window policy. I don't know if you've ever heard that. And that's what it is. If you don't keep it up, then it makes people feel as though it's okay to disrespect it and make it worse. Well, I don't want that in my neighborhood. So I do what I can to make it right, make it look good.
Okay.
And with that, everything stays inside. I don't want to have cars outside. That's not the way to work properly anyway. That doesn't look good to you. When you come to me wanting to spend a buttload of money, do you want your car worked out front? No, you don't. You want it in the shop where it's, the proper attention is given to it and it's taken care of properly. That's how I do business.
Okay.
Sir.
Well, I'll tell you, like tell us way back in the day, is that you're only as good as your word, and the last time you make a mistake.
Absolutely. Sorry. Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay.
Any
Any further questions for the manager, the owner, or Mr. Hunter, Commissioner?
I just want to say, and I think Mr. Hunter made it very clear, and I think that I don't know if we have anything in our ordinances or anything that will, if in fact something happened, because there are a couple of businesses that we've allowed to open, and they kind of came and they said the same thing. They said, oh, we're going to do all the things we're supposed to do. And then all of a sudden, the things they're supposed to do don't get done. And then code enforcement has to go out and and then by the time we get them, through the process and the court process and all those things is, so I'm saying to you that I hope, I trust that we don't have those problems. Mr. City Attorney, do we have anything other than citations that we are able to enforce it or to?
I mean, if a citation is issued and it comes to municipal court and there's a guilty outcome, then it of course will be brought to the city commission's attention for potential revocation or suspension of the conditional use. So that would be what, the process I would typically follow.
Okay.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Williams, I understand your concern. And with that, due process is an extended process that takes 6, 8, 9 months for the city to do what they need to do to get a potential harmful tenant out of there. I'm willing today, as of right now, in person to sign whatever you want, to give any affidavit, to give any personal testimony that that won't happen, to allow the maximum fine on the first incident if it were to occur, which it never will. Whatever I can do to make the commission happy, that won't happen. I understand.
I'll take your word.
I'm just saying, I'm willing to do, Ms. Wiz, I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Oh, and the judge is sitting back there, but
Whoever I need to speak with, handshake, whatever I need to do, that's not gonna happen. I can assure you, I'll take the maximum penalty
Yes, sir.
on.
I appreciate
Okay,
that, man.
thanks,
Take
sir.
your word.
Well, a good start is.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
A good start would be if we go to this lane where you're saying this mattress now currently resides, that it no longer has residents there.
9 a.m. tomorrow, it's gone.
Take it for your word.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll
Appreciate
deviate a
you.
little bit here, but that's okay. Sir,
Appreciate
thank you. Any further questions for Mr. How do you pronounce your last name?
Cobus.
Cobus.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Cobus. Any further questions, Mr. Cobus or Mr. Hunter? Thank you. Appreciate it very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Since this is a, you can have a seat, sir.
Yes, sir.
Since this is a public hearing, I will not entertain anyone who would like to come forward to speak for or against granting this petition. If you would like to speak, I'll give you 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Step forward, state your name and your address. You have 2 to 3 minutes. Anyone in the chat, Madam Clerk will let us know, and they can speak the same as well. So the floor is now open for anyone who would like to speak for or against the granting of this petition. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Commissioner, it seems no one has stepped up to speak for or against this grant this petition. Therefore, I'll close the public hearing session, close it out, and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve cup number 2102.
Second.
Motion and second for the grant of this petition 21-02. Any further questions or comments?
Were there any conditions we need to
That's a different one.
bring
21.
into the?
2102.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion. Was
with
it to
the
follow,
Staff recommendation?
was it to follow staff recommendation?
Yeah,
That's a different
Then you'd be fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we don't need to amend the.
No, you don't need to amend that since you're following the staff
that-
recommendation.
Yeah.
Those conditions are already in place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a motion second with the conditions already stated for this, the grant of this petition, condition use petition number 2102. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. Seems hearing nothing from the opposing side, that motion carries. I believe the ayes have it. Thank you. Mr. Hunter, please let Mr. Cobus know. I'm sure he's here, but he knows what he's supposed to do.
Which we appreciate you being here this evening.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
That's a requirement. We've been levying, want people to come. So,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Director Hunter, thank you for putting that forward. Okay, now, moving right along, item number 5, rezone petition number 2102 from James A. Bishop, representing the owner, petitioning to rezone 2307 Gloucester Street, highway commercial to planned development, traditional neighborhood for a PDTN designation. Mr. Hunter, you are our planning director. You are at the podium.
Yes, sir. James A. Bishop, representing the owners, petitioning to rezone the subject parcels from highway commercial to planned development traditional neighborhood. The subject parcel is comprised of 2.44 plus or minus acres. The Gloucester parcel was previously the site of a Days Inn, which had approximately 95 rooms and was demolished sometime in 2010. It was then purchased by the Brunswick Glenn County Joint Water and Sewer Authority as an intended site for an administrative building, which was never developed. The parcel is outlined in blue in the report and on the screen. The subject parcel is zoned highway commercial. Parcels to the north across Atlanta Avenue are zoned residential, a mix of general residential and R6. Parcels to the west in the same block are zoned a combination of office commercial, general commercial, and highway commercial. And the property to the south across Gloucester Street is Howard Coffin Park, which is zoned conservation preservation. You can see all those zones and how they line up here in the map. The applicant has requested the rezoning of the parcel to PDTN. The applicant intends to construct an apartment complex on the lot with a maximum of 170 units. The intent of PDTN zoning district is to be used to incorporate new neighborhoods and mixed-use development into the city in a way that's sensitive to the existing services. In this case, the applicant desires a PDTN zoning in order to construct higher density housing that would have otherwise be allowed in the area. The use of this zoning designation for multifamily housing in the city is not without precedent. Other recent examples would be Norwich Street Commons. The PD process allows city officials and by extension, the public greater input on the development of such facilities. As y'all know, when we consider rezonings, we always roll back to the comprehensive plan and look at our character areas to determine how potential developments might impact those neighborhoods. This is in the Urbana-Mayhew character area. The Urbana-Mayhew character area is a post-war subdivision with predominantly single-family housing. A large and recent mixed income garden apartment development, Whispering Oaks, is a major land use feature of the neighborhood. The Abbott Andrews Brunswick Housing Authority development is also located in the character area. These neighborhoods are bounded by the Highway 17 commercial corridor to the east, a Hercules plant to the north, and the Burroughs Millette School to the west. Edo Miller Park is on the northern boundary of the neighborhood adjoining the Hercules site. Appropriate land uses within the Urbana-Mayhew neighborhood character area include single-family residential development, neighborhood scale, commercial, institutional, and mixed-use development along Gloucester Street developed in a Main Street fashion with buildings fronting the streetscape and parking in the rear. Community facilities such as schools, parks, museums, and libraries. Multifamily residential in existing areas of multifamily development of compatible scale to the single family areas surrounded in traditional regional architectural styles. Recommended development patterns include houses located near the street with front porches, infilled residential developments on vacant sites, accessory housing units, multifamily developments that face the street broken into a series of smaller masses that mimic single family development and preserve the historic block structure. Structures such as shopping centers, warehouses, and offices located near the street front with parking in the rear. Grayfield redevelopment that converts vacant or underutilized commercial strips into mixed-use assets or community facilities. In examining the proposed PDTN text, there are a few variations from the current standards allowed within the current highway commercial zone and the US 17 overlay Glen Avenue design framework. All of the proposed uses, which in this case, the proposed uses are commercial apartments, condos, retail, restaurants, and offices. Those would all be currently allowed in the existing zoning. The proposed height of 72 feet is slightly higher than what the current zoning allows. Viewing section 23-3-3, height of buildings measurement, it states that the heights are measured from grade elevation or 12 feet above mean sea level, whichever is higher. According to the site survey, elevation is between 6.5 and 7 feet. This would provide an allowance of 5 feet. The maximum height for multifamily developments is 60 feet. But with the allowance, the maximum height becomes 65 feet above the existing grade. It should be noted that the submitted conceptual plan shows the building height at 62 feet 2 inches tall, which is within the 65-foot window established by the code in the elevation allowance. Rooftop amenities such as shade structures would not count against the height limit. The proposed lot coverage does vary from the Glen Avenue design framework. The design framework calls for a maximum of 80% lot coverage for development, and the PDTN suggests that it would not exceed 92%. Again, it should be noted that the concept plan currently calculates the impervious area at 80.56, which is just above the 80% required by the framework. The proposed parking ratio is 1 space per unit. The parking regulations currently require 2 spaces per unit. This would be a reduction in parking by 50%. However, the proposed site plan calls for 220 spaces, which represents 1.3 spaces per unit. Setbacks are within allowances provided within the Glen Avenue design framework. The proposed density, or the number of housing units, is the item with the largest variance from what is currently allowed by our ordinances. A structure of 4 stories or more is allowed between 23 and 35 units per acre, depending upon the mix of unit types. That ranges from efficiencies up to 2 bedrooms. At 2.44 acres, our ordinances currently allows between 56 and 85 units on this site, depending on unit mix. The PDTN text calls for a maximum of 170 units. While this almost doubles the allowed maximum units for the site, it would not be unusual for a hotel development on a parcel of this size to have 130 plus units under the current allowed zoning and uses. That hotel development would be allowed within the existing units and would likely have a negative impact on the surrounding residential areas. The Urbana-Mayhew vision statement cautions against the encouragement of multifamily housing on its existing single-family housing stock, which this development would not do. Multifamily housing is a permitted use in the existing HC zoning, just not with the density the applicant desires. Coupled with the previous use of the lot as a hotel, staff does not feel that a rezoning to PDTN would constitute a substantial change in use and would have fewer impacts than the transient nature of the previous uses. Based on all of this, the staff recommendation is as follows. There's a growing demand for multifamily housing, and there are limited sites within the city of Brunswick that can support this type of development. The economics of scale demand a higher density than our current ordinances allow, as our density requirements are oriented more to our existing city block structure and not larger multi-acre developments. With this in mind, the allowance of planned developments become an important option within our zoning structure. The PDTN as proposed does not deviate drastically from our existing codes, with the exception of the number of units allowed. The proposed density, while a departure from what is currently available in Brunswick, would be less detrimental to the adjacent residential properties than most commercial uses. Based on this, with the above analysis, staff recommended approval of the rezoning request. The Planning and Appeals Commission held a public hearing on this application on May 12th, 2021. Discussion involved many aspects of the requests, including the height, the parking, the design, the stormwater capacity, ingress and egress, traffic impacts, lighting, signage density, and how the concept design and the PDT and text interact and vary. There were no speakers for or against the application at the public hearing. By a vote of 3-2, the Planning and Appeals Commission recommended the approval of the rezoning request with the below changes to the PD text. One, that's Section 8 landscape plans and buffers should add in accordance with the Glen Avenue design framework at the beginning of the text. Item 2, that Section 9 signage should add as outlined in the Glen Avenue design framework at the end of the text. And item 3, reduced lot coverage in Section 4 to 80%. Those changes are highlighted in red in the PD text that is within the document. I'm not going to read all of the PD text. I tried to summarize it fairly well. I am going to scroll in to the concept plan so that you get a better idea of the scale and the lot coverage and the current look of the concept. The building would have parking underneath. It would front Gloucester and then in an L shape, head back from Gloucester toward Atlantic Avenue on the western border of the property. So as you were looking at it on the screen, the bottom is Gloucester. The building, while it looks like parking spaces, is the white parking spaces, and then the gray area is the not under building parking units. I guess the best way to describe it.
So how many parking spots are there?
It was, I summarized that. I'm gonna have to scroll back and
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Okay, all right, no problem, I got it.
But even then, I thought I read in there somewhere that they were including on-street parking.
there
We
there
don't really have
were a
on-street.
handful of on-street parking potential on Atlanta,
Atlanta.
similar to the way that parking was done up at Norwich Commons on Norwich Street.
The bump outs and the.
Yep.
Because it did,
But that was only, I think, 4 or 5 spaces.
it did mention Gloucester, and it's like.
No.
there won't be any parking on Gloucester.
No, there'd be no parking on Gloucester. As we scroll back to the site plan.
The only way, the only place would be Atlantic. I mean. what is it? Atlanta.
We do have representatives of the applicants here. Mr. Bishop could not be here tonight. He is attending Mr. Pete Carell's funeral. And I think he reached out to a number of y'all today or yesterday expressing that.
Yes, he
We-
did.
We do have the rest of his team, or the team here for the project. They're able to answer more questions in detail. And of course, I'm happy to answer all questions. But before we get to questions, one item that did come up that we initiated at the beginning when we got the application was potential traffic impacts. Knowing that this intersection in particular is a problematic one, we did ask them to do traffic calculations. And that was provided in the packet after the concept drawing. The traffic generated under national standards would not have any impacts that would necessitate any changes or any additional requirements for the development. So there's no need for ACell, decel lanes. Looking at the traffic capacity of the surrounding area, Garo Albertson was in concurrence that this would have a relatively minimum impact to the existing load of traffic that is already through the area.
Would it be fenced off on Gloucester side?
There would be no curb cuts on the
Okay.
Gloucester side. All the vehicle entrances would be from Macon or Atlanta.
Okay.
What about stormwater runoff and that impact?
That was one of the
That's-
things that Garrow's also looked at. That was a site that had 100% lot coverage when it was the days in. Their engineers, I think, is Jonathan here?
'Cause-
Yeah, Jonathan Roberts is here. He's able to answer that question more specifically than I am, but I know that was one of the items that they looked at very closely before it even got to us.
Because I do remember as you're coming from 17 and heading west on Gloucester, there was just a kind of a low-lying area there, right along Gloucester, where just huge puddles of water. And so,
Yeah, and I think there's a,
That's a little drainage.
is that where the kind of the collapsed storm sewer is right there on Gloucester? And I
so we made improvements. Hope we can make it.
I believe that is on our improvement list. It may be on VDOT's as part of the
Part of
current
it.
project that's in planning right now.
The convenience store.
That's Macon.
That's
Macon.
Now, that's where the dip starts. Drain-
Hey, this is Garo. I don't know if you can hear me. There is an inlet there at the corner of Gloucester and Macon that has held water in the past. I know GDOT's made some repairs to it, but that is their inlet there. It's in there right away. So they take on the maintenance of that, and we've notified them. So we're hoping that some work will be done there as the resurfacing project comes through.
That's gonna be interesting on that side there. Because like Gerald just said, that's where a lot of water is held.
Yeah.
And stands on that Macon side. And that's why we have that drainage. Right side.
Yep.
So really the improvements that we are getting ready to make to Gloucester are because there's no ingress or egress right there.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Bishop, yeah, he let us know he wouldn't be here. So is anyone here representing Mr. Bishop law firm? Okay. Step forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Marty Crabtree. I'm Mr. Bishop's paralegal, and he was really disappointed that he couldn't be here, but he needed to be in Atlanta this afternoon.
Yes, ma'am. I understand. Any questions for this young lady?
I had questions regarding, because we have the terminology of mixed use, affordable housing. So when we're talking about this, how are all of these components coming together in this development?
Yes, ma'am. And I would like to bring our team up if you don't mind. We've got the land planner and we have the owner
Okay.
and we have the engineer, which I think can answer some questions for you.
Thank you.
Ryan Hughes.
So Ryan Hughes, one of the developers. So if it's kind of development oriented, as far as mixed use and stuff, I can answer that. If it's civil oriented, we'll look to Mr. Roberts.
Ryan,
All right.
I'm sorry, how do you spell your last name?
Ryan Hughes is Hughes.
Hughes.
Ryan Hughes.
One question about I know the maximum amount you can build in the PD Texas is 170 units. Do you plan on building 170 units?
Actually, we're at 160, but these are schematic plans, and sometimes plans get adjusted, and we may add or subtract some units. So we want to give ourselves a little bit of leeway. So if somehow we end up at 171 units, we'd have to come back and get a variance for that.
I'll tear one down.
Do you see yourself exceeding that max?
No, that's why we went there. We don't see ourselves going over that.
Okay.
All right, so who is it that can answer my question about the mixed use, affordable use?
Yeah, well, that would be me. So right now it's all apartments. It's in a flood zone, so we couldn't do any building on the first floor. So that's why we had to have a podium over parking, kind of like a parking garage on the first floor. So it's not really conducive to doing, commercial use on the ground floor. So we just decided to do the 4 floors of apartments above the
So
parking.
strictly apartments,
Yes.
no commercial.
As of right now, yes, we went ahead and asked for that use just in case. I don't know, we have an area upstairs or we're gonna put a gym and kind of like a clubhouse and things like that. We might want to put like a little deli in there or something like that. So we just went ahead and asked for that use to be approved as well, just in case we decide to do something like that.
Because I read in the information that you referenced Whispering Oaks, you referenced Norwich Commons, compatibility of those 2 units versus this unit that you're proposing to build.
Compatibility, well, we're in a much better location. Yeah, I mean, we love the location right there next to the parks and close to downtown, water views, things like that. And as far as finishes, we're trying to keep it affordable. So we are going, I'd say a little above standard finishes, but to keep it affordable, it can't go too high end.
You just hit my keyword. You just hit the keyword for the affordable. That's what I've been waiting to hear.
Yeah.
Affordable. Mixed use does not mean affordable. So my keyword that I was looking for from you is affordable. Because I mean, we are development we are pro development, but I am concerned because I got information on a development within that area, and it is my understanding that property sold for $250,000, and within that area, I start to getting concerned about what I'm seeing. And gentrification is not what I want to start seeing in the city of Brunswick. I want to make sure that we continue to have affordable housing, nice mixed use, affordable housing. So
Mixed
that's
income.
why- that's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah, we had multiple feasibility studies and there's only a certain rent that any area can sustain. And this is probably our 10th site plan that we did on that site. And the reason why we're asking for more units, because the more units, then the less rent you can charge. So we feel that, based on the feasibility studies we've got, based on rent, we think this area can sustain that this plan works.
I know Mr. Bishop, so I do trust him when he says these things. So if he has you guys here, I trust what he's saying and I trust what you said in his statement.
Question, Mr. Hunter, has the NPA, Urbana NPA been notified to let people know this coming to the neighborhood? Yes.
Yeah, we've talked to Mr. Kipps.
Ms. Kipps, yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes, ma'am. Yeah, we're trying to set up a meeting with them and, address any, questions or concerns they have as well.
Okay.
Could you explain the thinking behind, there was a comment made in the staff, just before the staff recommendation on page 5, it says, coupled with the previous use of the lot as a hotel, staff does not feel that a rezoning to PDTN would constitute a substantial change in use and would have fewer impacts than the transient nature of the previous use.
So yeah, that's really the question. Obviously, it's my comments. If you consider all the allowed uses under highway commercial right there,
right,
you could have a hotel constructed, which you've got a lot of transient traffic. You could have a strip shopping center built there with all of the ins and outs that come with that can impact the residential neighborhood in a negative manner. You could have a used car lot go in there or a new car lot go in there that creates infringement from the business side. By going to a PDTN and having a defined residential use with potentially a little bit of mixed use, you're protecting that neighborhood behind it from the encroaching businesses. So in my opinion, that a PDTN text reduces those overall uses and that encroachment.
So would the tenants all be long-term tenants, or is there short-term vacation type?
As of right now, it's all going to be long-term tenants, apartments.
Okay, hence less transient. Okay. Well, I mean, I think the location is great because it's literally within walking distance of
The park.
Yeah, the park, a couple of restaurants, fast food, grocery store, which the walkability would work well, hopefully.
Yeah,
Walkability.
well,
would
and
work
that's
well.
why we're not worried about the parking counts now, because we developed a lot of urban apartment complex like this before. And we think one per unit's plenty, because like you said, a lot of people be walking. Some people will just be biking or where may not even have a car for the apartments. So we really feel with the walkability to everything, the parks and downtown, that people aren't gonna be coming and going as much, which is what we're trying to, and you don't want a big parking lot being used either. So we think what we're showing here for parking is plenty.
We have bike racks.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, lots of amenities and bike racks and things like
And
that.
are most of the apartments going to be 1 or 2 bedrooms?
We did a lot of studies on that too. We're gonna have what's called efficiency units. Some people like just which is kind of like a loft. So we've got a mixture of efficiency, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And we base that on some demographic studies that we had done, like how many of each we should put in. So we feel we got a good mix of that as well.
Thank you.
Did I miss any information? Did I overlook, did you have an average unit cost in here?
Not yet. We're still doing those type of studies, but we've done some preliminary studies and feel this mixture of units and size of a complex, we can make it work.
Once you break ground, what do you estimate as far as your completion for construction and then getting your CO? Hopefully the city will accommodate.
Yeah, 18 to 20 months.
Mr. Hunter, what's the difference between R9 and R6?
basically the minimum lot size. R9 is a 9,000 square foot minimum lot. R6 is a 6,000 square foot minimum lot.
Commissioner, any further questions or comments? Oh, Mr. Hunter, you mentioned that there were some questions that the planning and zoning, planning appeals people had. Can you share any of those? Oh,
So
I'm
far,
sorry, Sheriff's here.
Lance.
Lance, oh, I'm sorry. Lance, will you come? if you don't
Lance
mind?
is here and might be able to elaborate on that. A lot of it's been the same questions y'all have asked. So far.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. Can you elaborate on some of the concerns
Sure,
that the
sure.
planning?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of the concerns that the commission wanted to make sure that we addressed was, as you mentioned, egress from the property with having that many units. So we were happy to see that there's no entrance or exits on Gloucester Street. In addition, we were concerned about stormwater, and Mr. Albertson, addressed that that was not an issue. And then we talked a little bit, there was a little bit of concern about lighting in that back parking lot and that affecting the residential neighborhood. We talked a lot about screening on that parking lot, so I think they're going to address that. The other thing that's really helpful, I think that's great, is looking at the Glen Avenue design guidelines. And so the way the structure is designed is it's right up on the street. So we'll start building that facade just like we have, on Newcastle Street, as well as we talked about some improvements from the sidewalk perspective and things like that. So again, they want to encourage walkability, right? So they're going to invest some money to make sure that, we have that in place. So those are our major concerns. And then the other notes on the PD text, you saw that we added. So in the Glen Avenue design guidelines, I think the lot coverage recommendation is 80%.
Right.
I think their proposal is 81.5 or something like that. So we asked if they would reduce that to 80. Again, we kind of saw it as a model project, right? This is going to be this first big major development in the Glen Avenue design guidelines. So we're hoping that they'll, lead by example and be a really good representation of what we can hopefully see up and down 17. So, yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
I think it was good when you said about the sidewalks, because we were riding bicycles along that area.
Yeah.
And so, is it going to be widening?
I don't think we specifically discussed widening the sidewalk per se, but I think making sure that it's in good condition. We talked about removing that curb cut in collaboration with the city, because there's a couple curb cuts there, and if we could get rid of that, improve that. And I think with the Gloucester Street improvements as well, we're gonna look at some sort of connection, obviously, to the park and improving that cross traffic there for walkability and bicycles. So I think that's all good. I'm trying to think of the other thing, PD text changes that we had. Oh, yeah, correct. Yeah. So again, it's a residential facility. So we were a little concerned. We wanted to make sure that we don't have any crazy signage out front as we're coming into downtown, thinking about that gateway to downtown. And I don't think that's going to be an issue as well, as long as they just look at the Glen Avenue design guidelines. Lighting, screening, all that. There was some concern by a couple of the members of the commission about just the scale of it, just the size. I understand from a development perspective, wanting to give themselves a little bit of leniency or leeway in the design, because again, they're fine tuning everything. So I think really when you look at it, the height restriction, we're talking 3 or 5 feet, really not that big a deal. And we're talking about what, 10 or 15 units. To me, that wasn't necessarily a deal breaker, right? To get that kind of investment in our community. And again, to your point, bring some housing to downtown.
Well, what about the impact just from joint water and sewer as far as the number of residents?
I talked with Tim Ransom at Joint Water and Sewer about that, and he said there's plenty of capacity in that area to handle this.
And I would assume having a hotel at that previous location, right? It's probably.
So that's really going to make that improvement in that area by DOT very important, and how they structure that and how they do that. Because now we were already concerned, and now we'll have more
reason to be concerned
residents and more usage in that area. So we really need to make sure that's done. We really need to make sure.
She's looking at somebody, I don't know who it is.
She hear you. I
Right,
think she hears you.
right.
She was busy, that's why I kept talking.
I think she hears you.
So we're gonna have more walking in that area now, so.
Well, I think it'll be exciting for the city to have an
Yes,
anchor
definitely.
development on that east side of Gloucester Street, right? Because now all of a sudden, now you got two prominent, focal points and we're kind of connecting and now hopefully, the renovation or the improvement will kind of connect itself, right, down Gloucester Street.
And especially when we get our recreation department.
Mhm, mhm.
I just want to put that out.
You threw it out.
Yeah.
You threw it.
Yeah.
You really
We
did.
look for some help and some support from the developers, just go there. Sponsors, all that good
Yeah.
stuff.
I'm sure
Partners.
Sure we'll be talking to them.
How many public folks did you have come participate in the,
In the public hearing,
Yeah.
nobody spoke for or against the.
Ms. Hughes, I know you mentioned that you will be talking to Mr. Kitts. You are scheduled to talk with him,
Yes,
the
sir.
MPA?
Set up a meeting. We'll reach back out to him again. Should have that here
With the-
soon.
with the
NPA.
full group, the full neighborhood group?
Yes.
When do they,
Whoever wants to attend.
when are they meeting?
I'm not sure that when they're meeting, but just a reminder, Mr. Kitts is on the Planning and Appeals Commission as well. So
Oh, yes.
Ms. Myers has that information about the
That-
MPA meetings.
That came up during that, and I looked them in the eyes then and said the same thing, like, well, let us know when, we'll be there. We'd love to
All right.
coordinate
thanks.
with the,
And I would also, this is a great time to make this comment that when we do have applicants coming forward with a large project such as yours, that we specifically reach out to the NPAs that would be affected, that have, they live in that area, just to make sure that they're given ample opportunity to attend the PAC meeting and then the commission meeting and be involved in any of the public hearings.
Yes.
You're actually talking about two, one on one side and one on the other side. You're talking about Windsor and you're talking about
Urbana.
Urbana.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I got a question for Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Is this investment, is this private or what kind of investment have we got here to do this with?
private.
Opportunity zone too.
Yeah.
Yes, bro.
This is private?
Yes, he said private.
This is
Commissioner
Johnny Cason too, Mr. Hughes. I just was wondering, how about the demographics? What do your plans call for? What is your thought here?
On demographics, yeah, we had several feasibility studies done on this area. And to figure out what rental rates we should be, budgeting for. And then also, size of rooms and units and things like that to get to a mixture of units and sizes that we think this market can absorb over the next couple of years.
Well, have you, another question, have you considered the immaculate views that you're going to have when you get up over those oak trees?
We definitely did. That's why we fronted the building on Gloucester to a little closer to that water and the views. And we're actually playing around with the idea of doing like a rooftop amenities up on top of the building for tenants or events and things like that.
Well, this is another great thing. I go along with cleanliness, safety, and when the city starts to go vertical, you're gonna see things happen good in a hurry. So this really looks good there. It really does. And we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. A question for our fire chief. Can you please step forward, sir?
I was thinking the same thing, Mr. Mayor.
You go ahead and ask the question.
I guess this is about that massive raise y'all been discussing.
Yes,
No,
sir.
The question is about our fire equipment and the ladder trucks that we have now. For a building this size or this height, would we have to, or do we need to look at the possibility of purchasing another ladder truck?
I missed
the first part, I just got out of a meeting with the state fire marshal. And
I think
No,
the
not
height is what, 64?
62,
60 what?
62. Plus the rest of the-
Yeah, plus the roof.
5-story. It depends on parking and if we can park right close to the building. Technically, no, we would need a 110-foot aerial. That's what we had in Splosh last time, but if we could get close enough to the building, our aerial 75 foot. But if you're away from the building where you're supposed to be and you got that angle, it cuts it down quite a bit. So it depends on how far.
Will we have a fire lane?
Fire
Will we have
lane.
a dedicated marked off fire lane?
If chief requires us to, based on everything in the plan, that may be something that has to be considered. Obviously, that's right now, that's why it's a concept plan. We'll also be looking at all the fire codes, what firewalls need to have. Obviously, it's going to be sprinkled, all of those type of things as well. So that's all still to be determined. Another thing to keep in mind is that this project's located within the TAD.
Excuse me?
Right, yeah.
So there are needs like that that
And the
may,
opportunity zone.
that'll be able to balance out.
Okay. Is this it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna put on the spot. 6 stories to
No, it's-
the roof.
yeah, it's 4 occupied floors.
That's mine to the
The roof.
Belongs to the ladder.
Just the little information we have, we can probably reach it if we get right next to it, but that 110-foot area, it's really not, our area is not designed for a building that tall.
Well, I was really advocating for us to get a ladder truck too, so that was.
We
my-
really need that ladder.
That was my.
They probably got enough money they could buy us.
I was trying to get that going. Okay. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there ain't no way what we gotta reach the top
Just
of
say
that.
we need a ladder truck. Ladder truck. Let's go and say that.
Yeah, we don't have to reach the top of it no time.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Since this is also a public hearing, we will open it up for anyone to speak for or against the granting of this rezoning petition from highway commercial to PD text. If you come forward, please state your name, your address, and you have 2 to 3 minutes to speak. And Madam Clerk, please let me know if anyone in the chat would like to speak as well. So the floor is now open for anyone to come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Michael Kaufman. My address is 1612 Newcastle Street. I believe you're all familiar with the Zimmerman Volk housing study that was done a few years ago, commissioned by the Community Foundation. That study, I believe, showed that the Brunswick downtown and in-town area can absorb 300 to 400 new housing units over the next few years. I think a project like this would be phenomenal for the residents of Brunswick and make a big step in the right direction to getting a new housing stock. And what will happen ultimately with the housing stock is as tenants have the opportunity for new housing versus dilapidated housing, they will obviously choose the new housing. So the end result of this will ultimately mean that many of the homes and residential units that are not kept up to code currently will be forced to come up to code in order to attract new tenants. So I think this will inadvertently address the affordable housing issue. I think this is a very great project for Brunswick. I'm excited to see it and I hope that the commission would strongly support it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else speak for or against the granting of this petition of changing the rezoning from highway commercial to planned development PD? TN. Okay. Since no one else is rushing toward the podium, I will declare our public hearing closed. And is there any further questions for Mr. Hunter, Commissioners? Or for Mr. Bishop's representative? And if not, now we entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion to approve rezoning petition number 20
102.
Second,
Okay,
with the conditions as stated.
with the conditions stated, yes. Okay, thank you. Motion second for the granting of petition, rezone petition number 21-02. With the conditions, are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll for me, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. It seems that motion carries unanimously. Thank you so very much. Please let Mr. Bishop know the fact that this commission is looking forward to doing great business with
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and you will be seeing us again down the road.
I hope so, in a good way. All right, thank you so very much, everybody. All right, we are at the updates. Item number 6, College Park drainage. Mr. Aberson, I'm sorry you're not here to present in person, but I know you're online, so the floor is yours.
Chief, could you close that door, please?
Either close the door or close the bathroom door. 'Cause the
Yeah,
light
either one, yeah.
From the window is.
Mr. Aberson, are you on board?
Sorry, I'm here. Hear me?
We hear you now. Yes,
Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Give you an update on the College Park drainage project. We're going to go back and start from the beginning. As you know, that was a 4-phase project, or set up as a 4-phase project based on the drainage study that EMC completed. Phase 1 being the new outfall between the spur and between Altama Avenue along the spur towards Highway 17. Phase 2 is intended to be drainage improvements within the College Park neighborhood. And then phase 3 and 4 are both upstream improvements west of Altama, outside in Glenn County property. So we're working right now with a joint project between the city and the county on the design of phase 1 of the stormwater outfall. The engineer has submitted the design to GDOT because this will be a canal basically, which is in the GDOT right of way along the spur, with a crossing at Altama Avenue and a crossing at Community Road. So this design has been submitted to GDOT. They've had it a couple of months now under review, and EMC has been pushing them to finalize their comments and get those back to us so we can get those addressed. In the meantime, our environmental consultants have been working on permitting, getting permits for discharge permits for the marsh and that kind of thing. CMPA, Coastal Marshlands Protection Acts, permit applications in place. One of the items we're at the point of answering now is the ownership of the parcel at the outfall area where this new canal will discharge into the marsh. We've got to establish either purchase right of way or get an easement, or at least a letter of permission from that owner of that parcel. And I'm working with the county engineer and our consultant to find the best way to obtain that permission so that we can keep the environmental side of this moving forward as well. So that's kind of where we are as far as the design of the project. Are there any questions on that? And then I get into the grant and the financial side of it as well.
Go ahead on. We'll give you questions at the end.
Well, I know that
mitigation grants. That grant was denied. We recently learned about a month ago that grant's denied. They did give us.
Is this a priority? Or can we
you
come back
hear
on
me?
next meeting?
I think
in
he's
person?
gone. What he was saying was the grant that we applied for was denied. They are opening, DCA is opening up another grant as of August of this year. And we did talk to DCA because we wanted to make sure that this new grant was only for the communities that were the most distressed. So they said that it would only be the 31520 and Albany and Kingston. So hopefully we will be able to ask for more money. We will be able to have a smaller group that's asking. And if the other two groups don't have projects, then that means we can get more funding. The other thing that I had asked, and I called DCA, such as trying to get the design for our portion of the project started, if they would reimburse. And we will have a call with them to see. They preliminarily said we could get, as long as we met the procurement requirements, we could get reimbursed for money that we spent. So we may be able to take some of our ARPA money and spend it and then get it reimbursed. And the county may be able to do the same. And if so, then that will help us move forward with the project quickly. So we will have that conversation. I talked to Deputy Commissioner, but he wanted me to talk to someone specifically who knew how we could possibly, move forward and get reimbursed. So that's where we are. That we're going to submit again in August. We have a better chance. We are updating our numbers. We are updating our PER, our engineering report, and so we have a better chance of getting it. But in the meantime, I'm hoping that we'll be able to go ahead and start with the design so that when the grant comes through, we'll already have.
That's what I was.
Well, and that's the thing that he was saying. And I asked this question specifically because you all inquired, can we go ahead and do our work? And he said it would not impact because we have to have those outfalls done before doing anything. Because as long as the pipes there are too small, it's not going to help to do anything in the community. So we have to do phase one, which is the county's part mostly, and then our part. But, we are ready when the money comes in or when the time comes to go forth with doing our part. And we won't be looking at permitting or designing and that kind of thing. We're already down. Another thing I wanted to update is I did talk to Gina on the 5 properties that we're trying to get the mitigation for, and they are in technical analysis. They gave us a 90-day window, and we're 60 days into that 90 days. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some response from them, but I've been speaking with them every 2 weeks.
Okay, will you please continue to speak with the owners of those properties?
I have been communicating with the ones that email me and given her, I've responded, each time
Right.
to those emails.
Okay.
Regina, how about the Eastview property?
I'm not sure which, is that one of the College Park properties?
No, Eastview is off of 17. There was one residence out there that we were supposed to be taking care of.
Okay, well, I will have to follow up on that one, Johnny. I'm not sure, but I will make sure to get that and find out what the status of that is.
That would be super.
There wasn't any property at out there where you live at, Johnny, was it?
No.
Okay.
No, we're all whole out here, but Eastview, those folks have moved away from there, and that house is just sitting out there.
Okay. I got a question maybe for Garo. That new building that they're building right there in College Park, right at the corner, how does that affect what we're trying to do? Does that have any effect on it? on what we're trying to do there with the flooding?
No, sir, it won't, because that site has been designed so that it will not discharge any more stormwater or discharge at any higher rate than it did at a pre-developed. So it will discharge at the same rate as it did when it was wooded. So it will not contribute at all to any kind of flooding.
But it won't be impervious surface that you say. I mean, it has to run off somewhere though.
There will be impervious surfaces, but those surfaces, there's a detention pond there or retention pond, and that additional runoff will be contained in that pond and then released at a rate comparable to the pre-developed site.
Okay.
Has anybody considered the fact that the other on the other side of College Park on the north end, they're building another building that's gonna have a lot of impervious surface. I think it's Grandy's that they're building new.
Really?
There will be a lot of impervious surface there, but that site was already impervious surface as well. So there's not an increase of impervious surface there. So that drainage or that site is already accounted for in the drainage. We're not adding any additional runoff to the drainage through that site either.
So you're saying with the building and pavement on that property that was grass a few months ago, there's not going to be any different?
It looked like grass, but that site was basically a paved parking lot before. There was some small grassed areas there, but if you remember, there had been I think it was the last thing I remember there was a Chinese buffet. So there was a building there at one point, and it was a large parking lot, basically a paved site anyway there. So
I'm hearing all this. I'm hearing all this. But hearing and actually happening are two different things. Because if we're having what we're having now, and it is grass area there, we're having what we're having now, and we've got this building on this that's coming for the, what is it, a dentist office? Children's dentist office. I'm waiting to see how this plays out, but
It's a retention pond going.
Yeah.
So, which is gonna hold the water before it releases.
It'll be interesting.
It's
It's gonna be very interesting, to say the
Gerald,
least.
what is the time frame on phase one once we start? Do you know how long it's estimated to take to get phase one done?
we're probably looking at a year, possibly 15 months of construction. A lot of that time being the crossings at Altama and at Community Road. That's going to be a significant crossing, especially at Community Road with a lot of traffic disruption and roadway reconstruction. So it's going to be a timely or a lengthy construction project.
So what's the number of years these phases take? I've been a commissioner now, almost 8 years. I declare we still in phase one.
I believe, I'm not looking at the documents now, but I believe we started the drainage assessment in late 2016 or 2017. So, from the time we began the drainage assessment or this current project, we're 4 years into it now. I know there were projects completed before that on different areas and kind of attempts at solving the drainage problem, but this current project from the drainage assessment, I believe, we're 4 years into it.
I'm not being doubtful, but I'm being skeptical. I'm being cautious because I see that area where that new dentist office is. I hear what you're saying about these drainage ponds, but all I'm looking at is this bowl that this area is in, and everything settles at the bottom of the bowl. And as I pass by there on a daily basis, I'm looking down in that bowl, and it looks like they're digging more and further down on that corner. in that bowl.
So maybe it'll flow toward that corner. I'm just-
Now it's gonna flood 25 and we're gonna be trying to find another way to get up the spur.
Thank you, Mr. Albertson, for that update, and also City Manager for update.
Yes, sir.
No other questions for?
I have one question, and it's kind of what Commissioner Harris was saying with timing. I mean, what do we say to the residents at College Park? Because they're gonna call us and they're gonna ask, when are you all gonna do something? And even though we tell them, oh, we've been doing something for the last 4 years, they don't see anything. So what do we say to them?
Right. I understand their frustration. It's a lengthy process with the regulatory agencies that we have to deal with, the GDOTs and the DNRs of the world. So it is a lengthy process, and that adds a lot of time where it looks like there is no work going on. And even when the work does begin, it's going to be a long process as well. You know, I think we just have to reassure them that we are working on it, and you know, we're doing our best to push this along and make this happen.
And also vote yes for SPOS,
Yes.
because funding is a big part of that slowdown.
So do we need to get a delegation to go to the Capitol concerning this matter? It sounds funny, but it's
No,
a
it's
very
real, it's
serious
real.
matter.
Yeah.
It's real. Because I'm not living in College Park and my house flooding every time the sea levels change or some rain, heavy rain come down. My house is up on a little hill, so I'm not getting that flooding. I've not lived in College Park all these years, and every time you turn around with the heavy rain, my property is flooding. And so to sit here and say we feel and we empathize,
We working on it.
sympathize, at a certain point, your empathy and your sympathy don't mean a whole bunch to me because I can't take it to the bank. So
And
really, truthfully,
it don't replace my carpet.
I mean, I don't know. I wish I could just pull it down and make it right, but something has got to be done. I mean, and I'm serious about that. Is there something that we need to do to get something together and go to the Capitol? And I mean, I'm sure we won't be the only ones there, but at least they'll see us and know that we're serious about that area as well as the hospital area, that this stuff has been going on for centuries, not just decades, for centuries.
But if we can spend the money up front and get reimbursed
Right.
for it, that would move it along a long way.
Well, let's try to
And that's what we're
try to make that
do.
work then.
Maybe we do need to engage the legislators on that.
So
I would.
So do you think it would be feasible that if we, as a commission, engage our delegation, our state delegation to send some funding this way that might help, or to encourage them to do that on behalf of our citizens?
Or at least
Yes.
let us move forward with the understanding that reimbursement is appropriate.
I think I was Senator McNeil and also Representative Hogan would more than likely would be help us champion that idea, so we can get something moving here in the city, especially the College Park area.
See, because they have federal processes that you can fast track stuff. If a lot of federal policies are now moving into fast tracks.
Right.
I don't know how it is on that side, but I know on my side, they're getting into the mindset of trying to fast track different things that have a more domino effect on certain areas and stuff, and economic impacts on certain areas and stuff. So,
Right.
I mean, it won't hurt us to look into see how this could possibly be fast tracked.
Right. Yes. Well, let's make it happen. And let's do that.
Okay.
All right. So moving right along. Thank you, Garo. Thank you, also City Manager well for giving us that update. We're gonna move right along to our next item. Do we need to discuss our fiscal year 2021-2022 proposed budget review?
I have a couple of items that I would like to propose changed in that presentation, so yes, just for a moment.
Okay, item number 7, discussion fiscal year 2021-2022 proposed budget review. City Manager McDuffie has something to tell us here.
Okay, we presented the budget as proposed, and there were two, I'll say significant, but they didn't actually impact the budget significantly. There's a truck, a bucket truck that the Public Works would like to purchase, and it's $185,000. And we did not put it in the budget initially because we were trying to determine how we would fund it. We decided that we will propose for the truck to be leased, and we will get that lease after the October date so that we will not have to pay any principal and interest in the FY 2022 budget. So we are adding $185,000 to the revenue and $185,000 to the expense, or would like to do that, to purchase the truck during the fiscal year, but we won't have any payments for that truck. We also had a truck that was in the budget, in the stormwater, which it was already in the budget, and we'll purchase it through the lease as well. So we'll bring those two items back for purchase during the budget year. The only other thing I'd like to propose is to add a position to our CDBG as a CDBG manager, because I think we need to strengthen that area. We have a lot of money that's held for the city of Brunswick to use. We have approximately $1.9 million that we can use to infuse into this community. And we want to look at developing some programs for home buyers and, you know, that kind of thing to bring forth, as well as home construction and rehabilitation. So I felt strongly that we needed someone to oversee directly that program. And I would like to propose that to be added. We were able to add that position without increasing the funds for the budget. So the only adjustment to the budget is the $185,000 to add the truck. But those are the two items that I was proposing, and I think I have my screen shared. And I also, see, I have a chart that shows the position. Let me see if I can rotate again. This is basically adding the CDBG manager. That $62,000 includes benefits. It's not going to cost us quite that much. We added the salary and then added a portion of benefits, but that was our estimate for the position. The only other thing I did want to present, and I will share this information with the commissioners so that you all will have a listing. I got it upside down right now. Listing of okay, listing of the equipment, kind of, so you won't have to dig through the budget for it. The fire department, because these are the big areas, the fire department has $100,000 worth of funding in the budget for their equipment and vehicles. The police department has $175,000 for their vehicles and some equipment. And then the Public Works, which Public Works has a $442,000, but that includes that $185,000 truck. And then the stormwater has $220,000, but that includes the $134,000 truck for stormwater. And those two items will be leased. But it gives a full listing of the department's itemized equipment, and I'll make sure you all get a copy of this to put into your package. Okay? But that's the only thing I wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Any questions or comment to what City Manager said, additions that she would like to have put in our budget? Since she thought it's well thought out, and also we have the funds.
I have one question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Is this bucket truck replacing a truck or
something that's gonna go in surplus or?
I believe it's a replacement of a truck. But it was their number one priority on their list.
Okay,
So he said if nothing else was purchased, that truck was needed.
okay, okay.
Madam, excuse me, Mr. City Manager, I know in one of the last meetings we had, we talked about, you also talked about giving employees additional salaries and so forth like that. And we didn't talk too much about our contract personnel. In specific, our municipal court, our judge, and also it was someone else. I can't remember who that was.
City attorney.
City attorney, yes.
Well,
that
the
guy.
thing is, we don't have money in the budget for it, but we do have $75,000 in contingency. So when the commission decides what those amounts should be, then we can make that adjustment to the budget out of contingency.
Right. I think our next meeting down the line, we need to look at municipal judge contract. I believe it is getting close to, it's time for renewal.
I have it, I think it's at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
Really? Okay. All right.
Is that the same thing with the city attorneys, that the end of the year too, or?
I should know.
I think it's, yeah, I think it's at the end of the year. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure we don't get them. They're vitally important to our city as well. Okay, let's move right along. Thank you, Madam City Manager.
Thank you.
All right, item number 8, item to be considered for approval. Consider approval of May 19, 2021 regular scheduled meeting minutes and the May 25th, 2021 special call meeting minutes.
Motion to approve both as listed.
Second.
Motion second to approve both of those meeting minutes. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposed? Ayes have it. That motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9, consider approval of agreement policy for take-home police vehicles. Our chief of police, Kevin Jones, is presenting.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners.
Yes, sir.
Coming to you this evening to ask you to consider a policy change, and the reason for that is to help us retain officers, something you just discussed recently. So this idea here I presented a couple of years ago to the city manager and was not approved or looked at that time, but I certainly appreciate Ms. McDuffie taking another look at this and supporting this idea. And basically what it is asking for permission for the officers who live outside of Glenn County to drive their marked and unmarked vehicles home. Roughly 10 years ago, the commission approved for the officers to drive take-home vehicles within Glenn County, but the second part, which I'm addressing now, was not approved. So most other counties, surrounding agencies have this policy in place. Actually, Glenn County at the end of last year, I believe it was, adopted this policy to allow their officers to drive theirs out of county home. And they actually used the policy that I wrote, the one that I'm presenting tonight, as their standard. And I believe it's adopted as is for their agency. But McIntosh County, Camden County, Sheriff's Office here, all other agencies have officers that live in surrounding areas. So currently, that's what I'm asking for, is you to consider that we have a total of 12 officers that live outside of Glenn County. And 10 of those border Glenn County. That's, of course, McIntosh County, Wayne County, Camden, Brantley. So 2 of those, of that total of 12 that work for BPD, live outside of those connecting counties. So again, I've provided a copy of my amended policy, and that now I want to give you options here, okay? You don't just have to adopt or accept my recommended take-home agreement policy. Now, it does have $35 deducted, payroll deduct, to help offset the cost of gas and maintenance. Now, that's for your consideration, of course. No deduction would be better. I'll fight for my folks and ask you to at least entertain that or consider that. But basically, it will help us retain officers. We lost one last month that lives in Charlton County, and she went to work for Kingsland PD and got a 4,000 sign-on bonus and a take-home vehicle.
We train them well, don't we?
We train them well, sir. I've got another one right now, a sergeant that lives in Camden, and she actually does have an application in with Glenn County Police Department.
Yeah, I saw Glenn County PD patrol car coming up I-95 this morning, coming back to Brunswick, and I'm like, that's interesting.
Yes, sir. So I definitely want to keep her. She's a valuable asset. She's a sergeant, and that would provide her also, along with the other total of 10 officers that do border Glenn County, to have a take-home vehicle.
What about the ones outside of Glenn, that outside of the counties that border Glenn?
Yes, sir. There's two right now. It's one of them lives in Hinesville, and I looked up the distance. That's Liberty County. That's roughly 55 miles for him to drive home. And the other one lives in Long County, Ludowici, which is roughly 48 miles. So,
Dedication there.
but the other ones, the other 10 live in bordering counties. And I'm going to confess something to you tonight. I confess to Miss McDuffie. It has been a long-standing practice that officers that drive unmarked vehicles that are on call drive their vehicles home. Now, that's Brantley County, one in Wayne County, one in Camden. Even before I was chief, that was just something that the chief did and approved and allowed them, because they're on call status, to get called back in, unmarked vehicles. So I confess that to Miss McDuffie, and just told her, look, I just want to let you know this. That's the way it's been forever. And I continued that practice. But we want to make it fair to everybody, not just the ones on call, the ones that are in patrol, and give them the same opportunity to hopefully to help us keep people here at BPD.
Let me ask this question then. Is there a $35 reduction for those unmarked vehicles?
It would include everybody, yes, sir.
There's not at this point, though.
No, sir, not now.
One thing we want to hopefully ensure that the vehicles are used for work duty. I mean, we don't want them to take home a vehicle and then all of a sudden they just got to go to the store here, got to go there. I mean, you do it on your way home, that's fine. But we're talking about using the city vehicle for unauthorized usage.
Yes, sir. That is addressed in the sample policy that I gave you, and
Yeah,
we've
I
actually
read
had that happen before a couple of years ago, and I took away the officer's take-home privileges. He did not get to take his car home anymore.
Okay.
How many vehicles will be out at a time, at one time?
You said would be out?
How many vehicles would be out at one time?
Out of the city.
Out of the,
Well, there's a total of 12 officers, 10 with the bordering counties. So possibly 12, but realistically, part of those are always going to be on duty and working. So give or take 6 to 8.
Okay. That's what I was thinking, 'cause I mean, to have 12 cars outside of the county.
not at one time.
Yeah. Yeah, at one time. That's what I'm looking at. Is there a maximum amount of cars that you are proposing to allow to be outside of the city limits?
Well, yes, ma'am, a total of 12, but only 5 of those are marked vehicles. So that's what draws attention. That's what people see.
So let me ask you this. So, and I'm kind of piggybacking on what Commissioner Harris is saying. Then all of these officers don't work the same shift or the same days all the time.
Yes, sir, that's
So
correct.
there may be 3,
Maybe 6, maybe 3.
and
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I follow.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
I
looking
think
at
that's what she was trying to.
12 cars going at the same time outside of the city limits. Ooh, okay,
City Manager, what's your take?
Well, what I have spoken with the chief about is our priority right now is to retain and
Right.
recruit officers and to get people in our community working and hopefully taking officers from other entities that are trained like they're doing for us. But we have to be competitive in that process.
Okay.
Continuing to look at the salaries, also providing the retention pay incentive that we're trying to give if we have money left over at the end of the year, as well as this policy. I actually spoke to some of the officers. I saw one, on the street and talked with them. And this was one of the issues that came up. So I felt like, for me, it was, if I'm going to prioritize keeping people, being competitive in our efforts to recruit people, then I need to put my money where my mouth is and basically try to offer things that we can offer, that other agencies are offering.
Okay. I really like the idea. I like the idea that they have to pay something into taking it outside the county area. $35 seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I was
I've
gonna
got
ask
a
you.
question.
County
If I
adopt
may
that?
ask one. Do
Yeah.
you know what the cost is, Chief, to do this? What will the cost be per year?
Commissioner Casey, that's very hard to predict. First of all, based on gas prices as they continue to rise, but the city does have a gas contract. So it would depend on that also.
I would like to know what we're talking about, as close as we could get to it. I think we could make a more informed decision if we have some dollars to tie to it. And perhaps there's another way to, as our city manager says, to do this thing too. If you know or can come up with an estimated total cost.
Well, communication, I'll tell you this, if we gonna worry about $35 for retention, I don't think that's.
I'm not saying, I'm saying, what is this going to cost the city of Brunswick to do this project? I'm not concerned with the $35. That's not the concern. I want to know what the cost to do the program, the project, what is the cost here?
Well, I think we got to do something about our retention, and it's really hurting. We're supposed to protect and serve. That's what they're supposed to do. So we got to do all the things we can to try to level the playing field. And if our chief comes to us with this, and our city manager's endorsing, I do recognize what you said. It is a cost. Somewhere it's a cost.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
But we're gonna have to.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do a study after we do this and figure out what's what.
I can do that. I think we could do a motion to do this and get it going and then find out what the cost would be. I would certainly like to know before, but if not, then let's do what we need.
This is my thing. What does it cost? And our chief probably can answer this. What does it cost the city to train an officer for 6-8 months and then lose them to somebody else?
Yes, sir. It costs roughly $24,000 to train an officer. It takes a minimum of 7 months from the day you hire an officer until they can answer a call on their own. But you also can look at the offset of the 24 officers that we're short right now in salaries that's not being paid, which is close to $1 million a year out of BPD's budget to help offset the cost of a take-home vehicle.
So how is insurance affected?
It wouldn't, ma'am. It'd be the same. It wouldn't be any difference.
So
It would,
the
if I
fact that they're
could,
not during working hours, though,
Right.
that's my question.
so if it's under the policy and the officer is taking the vehicle home under the policy, so traveling to and from work, I believe it would fall within the city's umbrella. If the officer was acting outside of the scope of the policy, which I believe they would be aware of the ramifications, they would be liable either personally or through their own insurance to take care of what happened. the city manager presented this to me. I just took a look around. Chatham County allows for 26 miles from the county border, wherever that may be, subject to a Georgia residency requirement. So you couldn't, go to South Carolina, but it does appear to be, and they actually increased that 3 years ago to try to increase their competitive nature with the surrounding counties. So you're still, in looking at our policy and how much smaller we are than Savannah, even the larger, entities are having to do things like this to maintain a competitive edge, I would think. I don't know.
So within like a 50-mile radius.
26, so they're saying 26 from the county line. So I mean,
That's
out there if you think of from Chatham County out
So would we be talking about from the county, or would we be talking about city?
I think it's hard to gauge the same sense because so when I looked at that, I think, I tried to think of that. I mean, the actual urban area of Chatham County and Savannah is so much greater than Brunswick's, where you have people that are going to be traveling in from the county a little bit further of a distance to get to Brunswick. So it's hard to say that you could use the same 26-mile radius from that urban area, because we're the only municipality within Glenn County, and then there's clearly individuals that are traveling from another county. So I think it would be better to service it from counties sharing a border with Glenn County than to put a mileage, if that makes any sense. Tried to put some thought into it.
Okay. So, Commissioner, what you willing to play with this? I mean, are there any further discussion on it?
So what are you? I'm looking. My mind goes. I would be in full support of it, but my mind still has to go to liability and all of that stuff. We get sued for people falling off the curb. We ain't had nothing to do with it, but we get sued for it. I mean, that's the game that we're in. But now you're talking about a vehicle and taking it home. And I work for the federal government, so there's a propensity. People gonna misuse stuff. I don't care how good you think they are. I don't care how much you know. People just gonna do it. I mean, we give them credit cards and they go personally shopping with it, and then they got to come back and the job is in jeopardy for it. How are those things being monitored to make sure that these things are kept at a minimum, and that there's a responsibility transferred from the city to that person when they step outside of their authority to be able to drive this vehicle, use this vehicle. Those are the things that I just want to make sure that we're looking at. We don't want to pigeonhole them from being able to do this. If that's going to help us, we need to do what we need to do. But we still also need to err on the side of caution as well, because we know what we're in. We are just like targets. I don't care how much we move, we're just like targets. It's gonna be a lawsuit. If you scrape somebody and bruise somebody, it's gonna be a lawsuit. We know that. That's already done. So we get enough of those.
That was my main concern. She could tell you, first thing I said was Michael. And yes, we are upping our risk by making this decision. But again, I think, especially with the contiguous counties, we gotta recruit from those areas. And that's the thing. We need to be able to recruit from those areas and provide competitive benefits to those people.
So can we put it on a time frame to say if we can we say, let's do this for 24 to 36 months. That way we can build a historical pattern or analysis of how effective this program has been, how cost effective this program has been. So can we do that? Because even if there are other naysayers, then we have the information to prove why this is necessary, why this is done, along with the other information that's been provided as to the retention and the recruitment and what have you, all of those other things that you consider. So we're giving ourselves an allowance of time to prove the stability of this program.
Chief, are you okay with that?
Yes, sir. And also, if I can just add one more thing to help ease your mind some on that and liability. A police officer is considered on duty If it doesn't matter if he's off the clock, if he's in
24/7.
uniform in a marked unit, it doesn't matter where he's at. We still are considered, if we have to take action on duty. So the same liability applies to an officer driving home in Glenn County or in Brantley County. It's the same liability. So it's the same there. And ma'am, we police our people. And as I stated just a minute ago, that happened a couple of years ago, and the officer lost his take-home privileges. And he lived in Glenn County, not outside of Glenn County.
So let me, and I'm reading this, and it says that vehicle must be parked in secured and approved location inside a county that which borders Glenn County. So you will, or somebody will say, okay, Officer B, this vehicle needs to be at your house. That's where you're gonna park it. It needs to be secured. If somebody shows up or the car's broken into or whatever case may be, you're responsible for this vehicle.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay.
Chief, do our cars have GPS trackers on them so we know where they're at or what?
Sir, the radios have that capability. It is not being used at this time, but that's more of a 911 radio communications practice not to use that at this time, but it does have that capability.
So if it go missing, we can find it.
But you have it if you need it though.
I would probably have to be approved. Yes, ma'am.
All right, just wonder.
Well, I'm with you over a year to look at it.
Well, year, 1 year.
Yeah.
Kevin, how many officers are you short right now?
24, had a resignation yesterday.
Why'd you have the resignation yesterday? Do you know?
So why did you have the resignation yesterday? Do you know?
Oh, the reason? Well, he didn't really give one. He did ask to stay on part-time with Brunswick Police Department. He was asked if he was going to another agency, and he said he didn't have anything lined up at this time. So we didn't get a really good answer on that.
Okay. Well, Commissioner, we're here with this item here, and it's been proposed to do it for 12 to 24 months, and then come back again after we know exactly the exact cost of use of this program, and also the benefits or one of the benefits for that affect our recruiting too as well. See how it has affected that. So,
Mr. Mayor.
In a year?
yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes. 'Cause they have to-
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we approve the take-home vehicles for our police officers in the surrounding counties for an 18-month period, and then within the 12 months, they'll come back and give us a report on what it is costing.
Before someone second that, city attorney, is that's gonna line up with where we need to, what we need to do with it?
Yes, I believe so. That's the intent of the commission, yes.
Why you pull 18 months?
I don't know why you put it to, but no.
Well, I figured that would give us time to, and once the 12 months comes in, then we can add, or we can say, make it permanent, because if you do it at 12 months, that means that,
It stops right there.
yeah, it stops right there.
I think you ought to do it for 24.
Well, we got a motion on the floor for 18
I'll amend
months.
my motion to say 24.
Well, his motion been amended to, since the first one was lack of a second, amended to 24 months. Do I have a second?
Well, can we put a condition in there that if it's obvious after 12 months that it's not working, there's been some major issues that the program's discontinued?
Okay. If you, I'd like to second that now.
Egregious, I mean, I think we would need to put stipulations for being egregious, but if you're talking about it takes at least 7 months to get an officer trained, before they can even get in the car.
Sure.
When you're talking about looking at a pattern of something, 12 months already gone. can't assess nothing in 12 months, really, and truthfully, not.
Well, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, it has been motioned for 24 months.
Okay, great.
Okay. And also for, I guess, a report to be made
In 12 months.
in 12 months annually. But I don't have a second, so,
I second.
all right. The motion second for us to approve the take-home policy for vehicles for our police department for a 24-month period with stipulation of a report after a year and then reassess. Are there any further questions or comments?
That includes the $35,
Yes, it's just as.
just as it
He
was
presented,
presented.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right,
Any
you got
further comment?
Any legals you need to add?
Okay, seems like everybody's in the agreement with the motion or whatever. So anyhow, that's the motion. And it's been second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? Hearing none. It appears the ayes have it. Chief,
Very good. Thank you.
go forth and do great things
Yes, sir.
with your officers.
He's back up.
You back up here again. All right.
Moving right along.
Move right along. Item number 10, consider approval to reallocate $300,000 from the general fund to purchase 8 2021 Dodge Durango pursuit vehicles for the patrol division.
Can I make a clarification before we start?
Yes.
The reallocation from general fund is being proposed from the funding that we transferred from SLOSS back to the general fund.
Is that the money that we did something with our last meeting?
Reallocated that money. So that's basically, it was SLOSS dollars that was
Right.
transferred back.
So we already done that our last meeting.
Yes, that's
Okay.
been done.
So,
That's the allocation of general fund.
okay.
I just wanted to make sure you all knew where that.
I kind of thought it was. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. Basically, you just explained it for me, but thank you very much. Asking for $300,000 in funds to purchase 8 2021 Dodge Durango pursuit vehicles. These will be for patrol division marked vehicles. And part of the reason for that is, as you know, last month I came in front of you asking to surplus a very large list of older vehicles, some very, very old. A lot of ours are still 2008 Crown Victorias that are still in service on the streets. They're becoming in worse and worse shape, high mileage, repair costs are getting so high. And over the years, the commission and city manager's been very generous with helping us update our fleet and get reliable vehicles. So the purchase price of the Dodge Durangos for this year that we're looking for is $29,879. Now, I'm just letting you know that's the second cheapest police package vehicle that we can get. That is the cheapest SUV. The cheaper police package vehicle is the Dodge Charger. Those are good vehicles. They're just very small, very compact, almost no trunk room. So we have been trying to get more SUVs, but now we did put in for the V6s. We are looking at the smaller engines, the Dodge Chargers, the V6s, even our unmarked. We have some 4-cylinder vehicles that we have purchased. So we're trying to be conscious on spending funds. We're not getting nowhere near the highest priced vehicle. We're trying to look at saving money on gas, economical, and what's practical. So the cost of that, as I told you, was $29,879, and it costs roughly right now $6,748 we put in the money to equip those vehicles. Now that's everything from the cages, the light bars, the radios, the striping, and the installation costs. So that total comes up to, for those 8 vehicles, is $293,021.76. You'll notice there's a difference of $6,978.24. I don't pad things, but I'm being realistic. I asked for a little extra money because prices go up. And last year, we got caught with our pants down because there was such a spike, such a jump in the price of vehicles and equipment. COVID, the factories were closed. We did not have enough money to equip the vehicles that we had in budget. So like I said, I'm asking for a little bit of extra money because I do expect costs to go up. If it comes in under, that's great. So that is the reason for the request for the 300,000.
Are these vehicles going to be the same color, the other ones black and white, or are they going to be solid color or?
Yes, sir. We, 6 years ago, we changed to our new style, which is the black and whites, and these will be black and whites.
Kevin, are these vehicles available now? You know, there's a big shortage of automobiles.
Yes, sir. They are not available right now. We are still waiting. We ordered 2 vehicles in January, patrol vehicles. We've still not got those in. So that's why we're asking early, because it will take a while, even after we order them, to get them in. So right now, our wait is 6+ months on vehicles.
That's what I figured.
Yes, sir.
I think it's better to get them paid for at today's prices than 6 months down the road.
Have you,
So-
Kevin, have you considered anything electric?
No, sir, we have not.
Okay, we are here. Chief is asking for authorization to purchase the vehicle, put them on order so we can get them in within a reasonable time. I need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we approve the reallocation of the funds from the general funds to purchase the 8 2021 Dodge Durango Pursuit vehicles for the patrol division.
Second.
Motion second to proceed with the approval for purchasing these 8 Dodge Durango vehicles for the patrol division. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposers have the same right. It appears the ayes have it. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks, Chief.
All right. All right. We're at item number 11. Consider approval to purchase a stormwater system inspection camera vehicle. Garrett Aberson.
All right, here again, can you hear me okay?
It's barely.
Okay, I'll try to speak loudly. This item, like you said, is asking for approval to purchase a stormwater inspection vehicle. The current vehicle that we use is a trailer mounted camera system. So a vehicle is required to pull it. We use this camera, of course, to video the inside of storm drainage lines to check for cleanliness, the need for cleaning, whether or not we have problems within a line, maybe what's causing sinkholes or whatnot. So this is a piece of equipment that is used almost on a daily basis to evaluate and monitor and assess our stormwater system around town. And the current system that we use, or the current vehicle that we use, like I said, is a trailer mounted rig, and it is approximately 15 years old. So as you know, in the world of technology like this, that's pretty antiquated, getting pretty old. So we have put out a request for proposals for a new vehicle. We would like to purchase a single vehicle mounted rig. It would be a Ford 250 Transit van, the entire item contained in one vehicle. We feel like that would be safer as far as maneuverability, getting out of the roadway as best we can, and positioning around manholes and that kind of stuff when we're accessing this site. So we did put out a request for proposals for a single vehicle mounted system with the camera, the tractor vehicle, the computer software, all the operating system and everything required. You can see the three proposals that we received there, the lower being $196,187 from Environmental Protection Group. After we received the proposals, we did demo both of the lower price ones from EPG as well as the JetVac system. The JetVac system is the current system that we have on our trailer mounted rig. So, we were pretty familiar with that system, but it's just an upgrade. But we evaluated both of those systems, and we in the admin office as well as the operating crew far and away preferred the EPG system because it's just a simpler system. It was easier for the guys to operate. They felt more comfortable operating that system and just felt like it was a better, probably more reliable system all around, as well as being the lowest price of the three. So we would like to move forward with purchasing that particular camera system and vehicle. We are planning to, or asking to purchase this through the GMA lease purchase program, as Ms. McDuffie mentioned earlier, in the budget adjustment talk that she had. This is a 5-year, it spreads the purchase price over a 5-year period. So this purchase price will become approximately $40,000 per year over 5 years. We did put the purchase price into the budget for this FY21 that's winding up, that, like she said, it is shown as an expense as well as a revenue in there. But then if purchased now, our payments won't begin until FY22, and we have budgeted this $40,000 for the payment in that FY22 budget in the stormwater utility budget. And of course, we'll have to budget for that over the next 5 years as well. But that is budgeted or planned in our FY22 budget. So that's it. We're asking for approval to purchase that EnviroSite inspection vehicle from Environmental Products for $196,187.
Commissioners, you heard the request by our city engineer, our public works director, concerning the purchase of this equipment for stormwater, coming out of stormwater utility fund as well. So any questions or comments?
I have one question. Is this vehicle in stock, or are we gonna have to wait for this one too?
No, sir, it is relatively, I say it's in stock. According to the proposal, they listed July, August delivery time. So I think the vehicle is in stock. It will take them a few weeks to outfit it and get it ready for with the equipment that we've ordered. But a couple of months, so that's reasonably immediate delivery, I would say.
Okay.
Garrow, did you happen to check with Joint Water Sewer to see if they had any recommendations based on the equipment that they use, or did they provide any insight for you?
We did. We talked with their camera department, and they had reviewed this particular system, and they were very high on it. They spoke very highly of it. Turns out they ended up with their last purchase. They did go with the JetVac system simply because they've got 3 or 4 of these units or multiple units. Their previous units were a JetVac unit, so they went with the JetVac to maintain consistency across their fleet. But they were pretty clear that if had it not been for the previous purchases, if they were just purchasing one outright, they definitely would have gone with this EPG system as well.
Right, thank you. That's good to know.
Okay, any further questions? All right, this is a lease to purchase what he's trying to do on this. So they're not only, I think 40,000 or 40K come out of the next year's budget for this stormwater utility budget, really, for this, for 5 years. Okay, Commissioner, that there's no further question. I entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion to approve the purchase of the stormwater system inspection camera vehicle as presented.
Second.
Motion second for the approval of the stormwater system inspection camera vehicle as presented. Any further comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, have the same right? It appears the ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Apperson. Also, you're here again. Consider approval of contract for engineering and design service for the Albany Street Drainage Improvement Project to improve storm drainage conditions on Albany Street between F and G Street.
Yes, sir. These next couple of items are all very similar and very closely related in drainage. So I'll talk just a second about kind of how we set this up. As you know, we had a stormwater master plan completed early last year, I think February of 2020. In preparing that plan, we identified several areas around town that were prone to flooding, where we had flooding problems. And I think 15 areas were identified around town. And then the plan took those areas and evaluated them for several factors, such as roadway issues, building flooding issues, undersized or lack of infrastructure, maintenance issues, and tide control. Taking all those factors into effect, then the master plan prioritized our drainage projects and listed them 1 through 15 in order of priority as which ones should be recommended to tackle first. And so these next 4 projects that I'm bringing to you are the top 4 as listed in the drainage or stormwater master plan. Our intent had been to, if the most recent SPLOST had passed, was to start working on these, with that SPLOST money and go down the list as money allowed. Unfortunately, the SPLOST didn't pass, but Ms. McDuffie suggested that we reallocate some money from the SPLOST overage for the current SPLOST and use that money to go ahead and begin design of some of these projects so that hopefully when we do get the next SPLOST or some other grant funding or whatever source of funding there may be, that we would have some shovel-ready projects sitting there ready to go. And I believe it was the last meeting, y'all approved the resolution to move over $500,000 or allocate $500,000 from that SPLOST overage for drainage improvement, design, and engineering. So that's kind of where we're coming from with these projects. This first item is the Albany Street drainage project. As you know, Albany Street between F and G right there in that area is, that's one of our first areas in town. We can look for flooding. There are very few inlets along that street, and where there are inlets, they're connected by very small pipes. So that infrastructure is very much undersized for the development and the runoff that exists in that area. So we put these projects out to our pre-approved consultant engineers here in town, and we asked for proposals on these. They all brought us back proposals, and for this Albany Street project, we have selected the proposal from Goodwill Mills and Kaywood to move forward with that design in the amount of $48,700. And they're prepared to begin that work immediately. And they're saying that the design will take approximately 135 days. So at that point, we would have this would get us all the way through design process and have a set of plans ready to go to bid, so that when funding does arise, we're sitting there ready to go to work, or ready to put it out to bid and get started. So on this first item, we are asking for approval to go ahead with an agreement with Goodwin Mills Kaywood for the Albany Street Drainage Project for $48,700.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner, you heard the presentation by Mr. Albertson concerning this design of this stormwater, so the flooding that happens on stormwater drainage condition on Albany between Alpha and G Street. We are well aware of the flooding there. And he was asking for us to contract with GMC for the design. So when SPLOST comes back, the design will already be done. All we got to do is it'll be shovel ready, that's to say. We'll be getting out ahead of things. So we'll be ready if SPLOST passes next time to go ahead and continue that improvement on the area. So any further questions or comments to Mr. Albertson? If not, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I'll offer a motion that we approve signing the agreement with Goldwyn Mills and Kaywood in the amount of $48,700 for the design and engineering services of the Albany Street Drainage Improvements Project.
Second.
Motion second for approval of contract with GMC for to improve storm drainage condition of Albany between Alpha and G Street engineering design. Any further questions, comment? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposes? No opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Commissioners, it is now 7:22, I believe. Do you need to take a 5-minute break? Finish up. All right, we'll power through it then. All right, let's go. All right, item number 13. Consider approval of contract for engineering and design service for the Macon Talmadge intersection drainage improvement project to improve storm drainage conditions at the intersection of Macon Avenue and Talmadge Avenue. Mr. Albertson, you're here again.
I mean, again, the background is the same on this project. This area, the Macon Talmadge intersection, you all know well, I'm sure, is right there behind Popeyes and McDonald's off of 17. That area collects water near the intersection, drains through a very small pipe towards the marsh. But that area as well is very quick to flood and cause problems there at that intersection. This area was identified as project number 2 on our priority list in the Stormwater Master Plan. So, and we have selected the proposal from Georgia Water Environmental Services to design this project as well. That's an agreement in the amount of $38,700 for those services. So,
Okay, well, here again, concerning getting out ahead of engineering and design, so we'll be shovel ready when we get the money to actually construct the drainage issue there at Talmadge and Macon Street.
I have a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
Did each one of these projects get a different designer on them?
We submitted we asked for 4 proposals, and we had 3 design firms respond to us. One of the design firms said that their workload did not allow them right now, so they asked to pass on this. So
one of the firms will be designing 2 of the projects if approved.
Okay. 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 I was just wondering.
Okay, any further questions or comments, commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve the Talmadge Avenue drainage design for $38,700.
Motion second for approval of the contract for engineering design services with, who was it? GWS LLC. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. It appears the ayes have it. That motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Item number 14. Consider approval of a contract with EMC Engineering for engineering and design services for the Wildwood Ditch Drainage Improvement Project and the Riverside Neighborhood Drainage Improvement. Mr. Iverson, you present again.
Yes, sir. Same background, of course, on these projects. As Commissioner Williams just mentioned, this is the consultant that was low bid on these 2 projects. So I have lumped both of these agreements together into one agreement, but yeah, they provided the low price on these 2. And these projects are numbers 3 and 4 on our stormwater master plan list as well. The Wildwood Ditch Drainage Project, the area of that project is from the lake at Lakeside Drive, just east of the hospital, which collects all of the water from the surrounding areas of the hospital. And then it drains through a ditch system and pipe system all the way along, kind of parallel to Parkwood and Wildwood Drive, all the way down behind Calvary Baptist Church. Then it kind of weaves its way back through the doctor's office, behind the Budget Motel, through their property, and ultimately discharges under Highway 17. But have a lot of problems with that area, especially at high tide. It's very tidally influenced, but some of the properties on the lower end of that ditch have experienced some flooding issues during heavy rainfalls with that ditch getting out of the banks. Not to mention the entire length of the ditch is a maintenance headache because of the proximity of the fences and sheds and houses built right up next to the ditch. It's hard to get in there and maintain. Finally, this project would include a way to try to lower the water level in that ditch. There's been some flooding, or in the lake, I mean, there's been some flooding problems around that lake, and properties, those doctors' offices that back up to the lake have experienced some flooding. So we want to look at a way to try to lower the water level in that lake when we know that there are storm events coming. So this project will take that into account as well. The second part of this project is the Riverside neighborhood. Over the last couple of years, we've looked at a couple of small projects in Riverside neighborhood. It's just such a low topography there, and so low compared to the surrounding marsh. There's always problems in that neighborhood with stormwater runoff as well as high tide issues. So this project will add some inlets and pipes to collect the stormwater and convey it away from some of the ponding areas and areas where it collects along the roadways. But the project will also evaluate and design an elevated roadway. There's a section of roadway there between, as you get into phase 2 of the neighborhood, which is the first area there, which overtops during high tide events and causes a lot of problems with traffic getting through there. Not to mention the damage that it's doing to the roadway and that kind of thing, and flooding to the home sites. So this project as well will evaluate the feasibility of that elevated roadway, and then design the project going forward as well. So
again, if approved, this agreement would carry us through design. So we would have a set of plans and specifications ready to go to bid as soon as funding becomes available. We'd be ready to get started. So again, EMC Engineering was the low proposal on both of these. So we're asking to approve agreements with the EMC, two agreements, one in the amount of $81,400 for the Wildwood ditch drainage and $80,400 for the Riverside neighborhood drainage improvements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Albertson, concerning that. Any questions or comments, commissioners? One, it says EMC gonna be looking at redesigning the road to go back to Riverside. Raising the road. What that has to do with stormwater? Is the runoff from the road? I mean, to elevate it to make it flow run into the marsh.
That's not a stormwater issue there as much as it is a tidal flooding issue there. That section of road is very low compared to the marsh and frequently gets overtopped during high tide events, king tide events. I would guess 4 to 5 times a year, there's tide water overtopping that, which causes traffic problems. Also gets into several of the houses there and everything. So it's definitely a critical section of roadway there that becomes impassable at certain times of year during high tide events. So this will look at elevating that section of roadway and trying to keep it dry during these high tide events. So it's not a stormwater runoff issue as much as it is a tide flooding event.
That roadway had some major work done to it several years ago to raise it up. And is this just still a continuation of rising sea level and high tides that we're going to have to deal with, or was it not done properly?
I mean, I think, yes, sea level rise is an issue. And so, rising tides and higher tides are certainly going to continue to be an issue. I won't say that project or that area was done improperly, but that the problem, whether it worked at the time or not, I'm not sure, but it certainly is one of the first areas to overtop right now.
I don't know of the road being raised up. I know of it being resurfaced, but
right.
I do not know of anything other than resurfacing.
I'm not aware of a project to raise either, but
Okay. All right. So anyhow, any further questions concerning this area? These two projects that we're looking at are doing the engineering design for, again, to have it shovel ready for when we're able to get the funding to actually do it. Now, I hope and I pray that we don't, it doesn't become outdated and we be in the same situation we were when we're trying to get the College Park area. So we got to stay on top of this one too. So, any other further questions, commissioners?
Mr. Mayor, I offer a motion.
Okay.
I offer a motion that we approve the contract with EMC Engineering for engineering and design services for the Wildwood Ditch Drainage Improvements Project and the Riverside Neighborhood Drainage Improvement.
Second.
Motion second for the approval of the contract with EMC Engineering for engineering design services for Wildwood Ditch Drainage Improvement, that project, and the Riverside Neighborhood Drainage Improvement Project as well. Are there any further questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposers have the same right. It appears the ayes have it unanimously. Thank you, commissioners. All right. Thank you, Mr. Albertson, for Presentation, a little presentation. And thank you, City Manager, for bringing that all to our attention here. All right, item 15, City Attorney item. Consider for discussion an amendment to the City of Brunswick Code of Ordinance, Section 23-24 of the zoning ordinance. Mr. John Hunter, our planning director, will be presenting under the City Attorney item. Or are you presenting, sir?
Well, no, I mean, these are two zoning ordinances that are arising out of the city's contract with the CRC. As you guys are aware, John has been working far more closely with them to overhaul our planning and zoning ordinances. So tonight, what we've put together, what John essentially has put together and I've been able to review, are the changes to the sign ordinance and the buffer ordinance. So the three things that you have before you tonight are the documents that he's been working with the CRC on. There's a summary up front, an actual layout with red line changes, and then the final would be the ordinance as it would be in like its legally approved form. Tonight is a first reading. Because these are amendments to the zoning ordinance, there's a requirement that they be advertised as a public hearing. I talked to John earlier, those have been advertised. So Mayor, as you move through these readings and after John presents, you would need to call for anyone here to speak for or against the ordinances each.
So we're using this as a public hearing?
Yes.
That's what you're asking for?
Yes, and it's been properly advertised within the requirements of the law. It would be the same as the public hearings we've had earlier tonight on the two rezonings. I'll turn it over to John after that.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Brian did a great recap, and y'all know we did do 2 work sessions with Mayor and Commission going over the proposed changes. This brings the first 2 ordinances to you. The first one being 23-24, which is our sign ordinance. In your packet, you have a summary of the proposed changes on page 2. The sign and advertising services section of the zoning ordinance was primarily edited and reorganized at the request of the planning director to make it clearer, understandable to the user, and more effective to enforce. Following are the principal changes to the ordinance. All definitions relating to signs previously included under the overall ordinance definitions have been relocated to the sign ordinance section. They've likewise been grouped by function as by type of sign, style of sign, and design. So basically we had, in our general section of the ordinances, we had sign-related definitions. And then if we needed to reference them, we were flipping back and forth between these different definitions in the section of the code. So it consolidated them. All sign-related definitions are in the sign section of the code.
So if you were working on a sign application, you only need to consult the sign ordinance portion unless there's a specific reference in the sign ordinance. Hey, go look at this section.
Right.
Whereas if you were exactly.
Yeah, it cut down on errors for sign companies, applicants, and staff. Well, obviously, when you're flipping back and forth between those 2 sections, it's easy to lose material. The types of signs that required no permits have been clarified and the following types added. And again, these are no permits required. Flags, holiday decorations displayed no more than 60 days, excluding the period between November 1st and January 15th. Incidental signs like building numbers, entrance and exit signs, traffic directional signs, etc. Building interior signs, menus posted on the facade of a restaurant entrance, reserved parking signs, signs erected by government, including interpretive signs, real estate signs not exceeding 6 square feet in size, 1 per site, and off-site open house signs. Both must be removed 4 days after the open house event or sale of the property. Sandwich board signs subject to size and number per establishment as well as construction, and that says color, and that is a typo. We took that out. We did not want to get into regulating color. Just as a note, sandwich boards currently are only allowed downtown. So there are other locations where people would like to have them, but they are, by our ordinance, they're not allowed anywhere outside of downtown. Shopping cart return and parking lots, string lights for holiday decoration and or building identification. String lights may be used between November 1st and February and January 15th. Blinking or flashing lights are prohibitive. String lighting used as part of a building feature may be installed if approved by the building official. So there's a couple of distinctions there. Obviously, we got two categories of holiday decorations. One are those outside the Christmas period or the holiday end of year period. One is that holiday end of year period. Towing or traffic control signs installed by government and window signs, so long as they do not exceed 25% of the window area or 4 square feet per sign. Only one sign per tenant or user. Changes to the permitted signs by type. We simply reorganized it again to make it easier to find the type of signs permitted by specific use. We created a summary table that looks at locations and zoning and size restrictions and made it basically so almost all the verbiage about where you can have signs and what type of signs you can have is all on a readable chart. The idea, again, being much more user-friendly than we are right now. The restrictions were spread out through all, I believe, 18 pages of our sign code at the time, and it will really streamline references for everyone involved. Actual changes within the permitted signs by type. No freestanding sign is permitted in local commercial. Local commercials are their neighborhood scale. They're your smaller corner store or retail business. Normally, they're on a lot that almost has no setbacks anyway, so there's not very much room for a standalone traditional pylon sign. I don't know that we have many of those outside of maybe 2 or 3. Obviously, ones that are in existence now would still be allowed as legally non-conforming. Changeable copy signs are permitted in general commercial and highway commercial and excluded in all other areas. This is some feedback that we've gotten over the course of the last few years about, in particular, LED billboards and the way that they can change copy. That's something that staff and the Planning Commission all felt was something that in today's world is not as scary of a technology as it was when it first came out, when our zoning ordinance, when our sign ordinance was last redone in the early 2000s. So allowing those changeable copies, we felt like was normal today and would not be an issue that people thought it might have been. Sign design and placement plans are required for multi-tenant or user commercial or office parks or industrial parks to achieve a coordinated signage of tenants or users. Basically, the idea there is if you were doing a large scale development, you need to have a sign plan for the entire development that's submitted and approved. That way we've got something on record so that something like Glen Isles, where you've got a spread out number of buildings, it's much easier for us if we've got that sign master plan to say, this fits within that approved sign master plan that your developer did at the beginning. It's much easier to administer in the long run as tenants move in and out. Design standards. The entire section was redrafted and reorganized by use and type of sign to make requirements relevant to each use or application. As a result, the section is easier to understand and users can quickly determine the size, type, and location requirements for their signs. It also makes the section easier and clearer to enforce. Included in the format change, we consolidated within these charts the setback and location requirements for all signs by type. the size, the height, and design standards and limits by location and type of signs. And likewise, the design standards have been included in this chart form to make it easier to use and for clarity. So we did two things there. Again, we had all these different types of signs spread out through the code, and we consolidated that information. So if you are zone general commercial, here's all the types of signs that you can have and what sizes they can be. We did the same thing in a chart form. So it's written and on a chart because people learn differently. But it's clear and it's concise. There were no changes to our actual sizes, types, designs, setbacks, any of that information. It really just compiled it in a more readable format all the way around. That summarizes the changes in the reorganization. Into the packet, you do have the ordinance in a red line version, so you can see how all that changed. It took a lot of work. We spent a lot of sessions on just signs by themselves. And then there's the new ordinance in ordinance form. And at the very end, you see those usage charts. And those will really be the biggest item that our applicants will use and will highlight on our new planning section of our new webpage, where people looking for sign information, that'll be our quick link to them, is these two charts at the very end. They would be able to get 95% of the information they need about signs on those two charts.
It's a lot of red ink here.
A lot of red ink.
If you really, I mean, the crux of what has gone on here is if you went to page, it's 46 in John's packet, but 144 in the actual agenda packet. It's the beginning of it's table number 1. And it shows the sign usage. And if you look on the very left column, if a person was coming in to try to apply for a sign, you look at your uses and zones, they can determine, so long as they know they're zoning for their property, it's a plug and play. You go down the list, and then to the right, it determines what signage is permitted for your property.
Yes.
So trying to make it, whether, again, like John said, people learn different ways, but it's almost like a reference card to say, hopefully it'd be fast and easy for somebody to look and come in and, I'm commercial, general core, and you look down and it says exactly no, yes, no, as to what, type of signage you're permitted. That's the idea.
Can I ask for clarification on one of the items?
Yes, ma'am.
On the string lights, now, all of the lights that are at our restaurants and whatnot, that's not prohibited, correct?
No, it's not. It's really the use of them as basically part of as a sign. So if you have your courtyard and you've got your string lights, that's fine. It's actually using them as an advertising device that this would regulate. So if you put up a happy holiday sign at the end of the year and you wrapped it in string lights, that's fine. You can have that. They don't need to be blinking, but those need to go away as part of your business outside of the holiday period. If it's part of your actual decor of the building, that's why we had that clause in there about the building official. If we decided, if the business owners downtown, and this has been talked about, decided to run lights across the top highlighting the facade of the building, that'd be perfectly fine. They just have to make sure it's done to code. It's not considered a sign. Okay. And that's where the distinction is if it's being used for advertising, then it becomes a sign.
It's a sign.
And will current businesses be grandfathered in? I mean, like,
Well,
for instance, right there at the corner of MLK and Gloucester and Albany also, that the grocery store, the downtown grocery and the liquor store right there that have the flashing.
I believe right now, actually, under our ordinance, the flashy lights are already not allowed. Trying to get them to maintain them that way is difficult.
Yeah.
Although also one of the biggest flashing light signs that we have is the Ritz Theater. So
Ritz Theater.
Historic.
it's historic. But we try to monitor that and we try to be realistic with it.
I
And
think the only time it does its thing though is if there's a performance,
Right.
like.
right.
Well, so going back to what Julie was talking about, like, that grocery store there on the corner, the only lights I ever seen flashing was like the sign that says open.
Open.
You know.
Yeah, and honestly, that's one of those things that technically, are they supposed to? No. That's one of those things we've got bigger battles to pick sometimes. And I won't say we ignore the code on that. If we're in there for something else, we'll remind them, hey, it's really not supposed to be flashing. If it's in a situation where it is actually causing a visual issue with a vehicle or something like that, then we would go forward on enforcement with something like that.
Yeah, because I spoke to someone about that, and I told them that light's not supposed to be flashing. They said, well, how do I get people to my business? I just let it stay on red, I guess. I don't know. Oh, okay. Okay, that's interesting to know.
Someone who's had to actually go out and talk to people about that issue, it always helps.
Right.
Part of it's the design.
Okay, commissioners, been presented by Mr. Hunter and also with approval of our city attorney, this reading of our ordinance, section 2324, concerning signs. As it was stated, nothing has been really added or deleted, or in a sense, it just has been made more clearer. It's clearer now, been put in concise form, so it'll be readily
Is there any way
readable.
Is there any way that we can get this information to sign companies? Because I got calls today that y'all finna do something and we weren't informed. And I was like,
I don't mind sending contact information to these to the companies that I have contact information for. We work with most of them on a pretty regular basis.
Basically two.
Well, we got about you've got 3 with billboards, but the actual sign companies that do sign fabrication and everything, we've probably got another 6 or 7 working locally regularly. So it's not that big of a deal. Really, the summary. What I'll do is I send them a link to the webpage and ask them for any comments. Like I said, substantively, with the limited number of changes, that wasn't as much of a concern as if we had really gone in and started changing the distances between the billboards and the size of the signages and the things like that. Our goal was really just to take what we have, which seemed to work fairly well, and make it much more user-friendly and readable.
Okay.
When you send it, link, would you just document which companies you've sent it to?
Sure thing. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I'll add that to the report for the second reading.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Guess
Again,
let 'em
this
know
was
the timeframe.
advertised as a public hearing, and it still requires a second reading, so they do have that time period in there. Once John gets them, they can
Right.
submit comments just like anybody
Gotcha.
else would.
Yeah,
we
and
can
if
take
they
them
want to
into
attend the
consideration.
next meeting,
Hopefully they will attend the next meeting.
yeah, they should.
Okay, we're here, as I said, this is our first reading of this ordinance, this amendment to our ordinance, section 23-24. As we move along, this process is, this will become a public hearing to ask for anyone who would like to speak for or against this amendment to our ordinance, as this is our first reading of this ordinance. So therefore, I'll entertain anyone who's here who would like to come forth and speak for or against this amendment. Granted, you may not have had the opportunity to take a look at it. We hope that you did. It was available for everyone. But you also get an opportunity at our second reading as well before we adopt it, if we adopt it. So, is there anyone out there who would like to speak for or against, or any comments against this, for this amendment? Please step forward, state your name, your address, and you have a couple minutes. And Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, please monitor the chat for me, please, as well. And we'll give them a couple of minutes, seconds. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And hearing crickets from the room here, I mean, no one step forward either. So, commissioners, as this is our first reading, we will have it advertised as we've done before, and we will come back for our second reading and our adoption at our next meeting, which will be June 17th.
15th.
15th.
16th.
I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask.
I was gonna say, it can't be on the 17th.
16th, well, one day. Our second meeting.
My wife will kill me if it's on the 17th.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I appreciate that very much. And
I'd like to ask.
please ensure that when you send that link to those companies that have an issue with that. All right. Our next item number 16, consider for discussion an amendment to the City of Brunswick Code of Ordinances, Section 23-3-21 of the zoning ordinance. I believe you're going to present again for our city attorney.
That's right. So again, John would be presenting the summary of changes. And this is also not tremendously substantive, but there are some changes that need to be addressed.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Essentially, the buffer requirement section was edited and needed changes made to make the requirements and establishment of buffers clearer and more effective. The following other significant changes. Buffers are still required when non-residential or mobile home district boundaries adjoin a residential zoning boundary. Added is the ability to require a buffer when a conditional use is approved by the city. We've done that, but it is not something that was explicitly allowed under a conditional use. So that's an advantage for us. Buffers are now defined as a natural buffer, meaning existing trees and shrubs on the property are retained and possibly enhanced by cultivation or minor addition of plant material, or a structural buffer, which creates a visual screen, which could be a wall, fence, earthen berm, or a combination of these things. Before, we just said buffer that couldn't be seen through. So that adds clarity there. The width of a buffer is now defined. Previously, a buffer only had to conceal 75% of the adjoining property's vertical wall. So between office and all residential zones, that buffer needs to be 20 feet. Between all commercial recreation, and medical zones and the neighboring residential zones, the buffer would need to be 25 feet. Between all industrial zones and residential, including mobile home, commercial recreation, and medical zones, that buffer would need to be 50 feet. Added requirements for a natural buffer include types of trees, overstory and understory. Evergreen shrubs are quantified within any 20-foot, 25-foot, or 50-foot natural buffer area. They're now quantified as to the number required per 100 feet. All trees and shrubs must be indigenous to the Brunswick area. So for a 20-foot wide buffer, you would need 2 overstory trees, 3 understory trees, and 8 evergreen shrubs per 100 feet. For a 25-foot wide buffer, it would be 3 overstory trees, 3 understory trees, and 10 evergreen shrubs per 100 feet. And for a 50-foot wide buffer, 4 overstory trees, 5 understory trees, and 20 evergreen shrubs per 100 feet. The height of trees and shrubs after planting is now also quantified as follows. Overstory trees, 10 feet in height, understory, 6 feet in height, evergreen shrubs, 3 feet in height. All plantings must produce a visual screen averaging 6 feet in height after a single growing season, which is 1 full year. And any plant material that does not survive the first growing season must be replaced. Requirements for a structural buffer are now more specifically defined. Structural buffers may be fences or walls constructed of wood or masonry materials and must be at least 6 feet in height. Plant materials equaling 50% of those required for a natural buffer must be installed along the residential zone side of the buffer. Earthen berms may be used as a structural buffer and must be at least 6 feet in height with side slopes of 1 foot rise to 2 horizontal feet. Plant materials must be installed at the base of the berm on each side, and the berm must be planted with permanent grass. A fence may be installed in conjunction with the berm so long as the total height achieved is at least 6 feet in height. Enforcement of the buffer requirements is still left to the building official. Using these guidelines, and a landscape plan for the proposed buffer must likewise be submitted for approval. So with all of that, just to kind of talk about how this all applies, this is primarily intended for new development. So as we move forward and we start to have new projects coming in that are going to be potentially impacting a neighboring zoning property and that's zoned differently, we would have the ability now as part of that development to enforce this type of a buffer much more readily than what we've had in the past. There's a lot less subjectivity. We also have the ability to say at the very beginning of a project, you've got a natural buffer in place before a permit is issued and a shovel is turned on the site. We need that buffer plan so that we can determine whether we are protecting and keeping what is there or if it needs to be augmented, so that way that neighboring, say you've got that commercial right next to residential and it's an undeveloped lot and it's been full of trees for the last 50 years, that residence on the other side is protected. And they've got that 20, 25, 50 feet that basically stays unchanged. That's something we've really not had a strong ability to do in the past. It's been relatively subjective, and I think it'll reduce a number of conflicts between potential new development and incompatible zoning being next door to each other.
So we would have done this at College Park earlier.
So that College Park one, I actually held that permit up for about 3 months, getting a commitment on how they were addressing the buffers. There were some issues there that they also had with GDOT that helped me with that, but I was actually the last person to sign off on that building permit after GDOT had already cleared up their issues, and I was not releasing it until I had paper backing me up on what the end result was going to be on that project.
On these buffers, these widths, are they measured from the edge of the property line?
Yes.
Or which
Yeah.
I guess is right there between the right of way and the beginning of the property?
Right-of-ways don't necessarily come into play with this.
Okay.
As much as neighboring property lines. So where we've got that issue right at the spur, where you've got a highway commercial, 3 lots, and you've got 2 residential lots on either side, and we had a residential right-of-way that they weren't using. Basically, we'd measure off of all of those things. So we would look at that, measure from that property line, from our right-of-way line, and from the adjacent residential property line.
So the proposed development at Gloucester, would you have any buffers necessarily?
I'm going to have to go and look at that because those are commercial zones right next to it. It would not need to have any buffers between those commercial properties. There will be some screening requirements that we have for parking areas and things like that, and some landscaping requirements because it's in the Glen Avenue design overlay. They'll have some street trees that'll need to go in different locations and things like that. So to really beautify that corner, but no buffer requirement to those neighboring properties.
And I think if I remember in that site plan, they did have some parking islands that were going to be planted.
Yep.
So it's just not, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe their plan is to do some overstory trees within those. That's one of the things we talked about, to provide shade and help with the heat load there.
Questions for Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, John, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I want to go back to the signs just a minute, if I may, and then I'll follow up. I don't see anything in here on the campaign signs, and I tried to ask you this question while you were on signage, but I guess I was muted. I don't see anything about campaign signs, and I don't see, I had another thing about the sandwich signs. Why are they only allowed downtown, sandwich board signs?
I can't really speak to that. That's just what was in our sign ordinance previously.
Well,
And
we've had some problems with folks, and we're starting to expand now. Even the new Gloucester Street project, the guy said they might come back and want a restaurant. Perhaps they'll want a sandwich board sign to put out. So, you know, I don't want to impede the sidewalks, but it's something to think about. I know we've had people out on Norwich Street want to use sign boards, and I'm not sure if you were in your position then or not. I don't think you were. But
so one of the things that still goes along that is there are some requirements for use for sandwich boards that dictate, you know, where you can put them in regards to on your property and on city sidewalks, and about how much clearance you need to have around those signs so you're not impeding foot traffic and things like that. What it does, though, is actually just take it out of our permitting process. You still have to meet those requirements. And if it causes, and if you've exceeded those requirements, you're out of the code and you could be cited for it in that manner. It just does not require a permit from us. Does that help answer your question a little bit?
Well, it does. But again, I can remember this being an issue specifically out on Norwich Street, and our people that were in code enforcement at that time told the people they had to remove the sign.
But they did, yeah, they did. The only specific area it was allowed under our code was on Gloucester, and on Newcastle downtown, and we felt like that was being overly restrictive. There are lots of appropriate uses for those type signs, like on Norwich Street, Glen Isles. Actually, they've got wide enough sidewalks at a lot of those little shops where they've got they're having buy one, get one free or something. It cuts down on us being in a regulatory process that we don't need to be in.
Yeah, well, I know it's been an issue in the past, and no lighted signs in windows. You know, I don't understand that fully. There's some signs in windows that say open that are pretty dignified to me.
So it's you can have the lighted signs in the windows. It's the flashing that becomes an issue.
Does it state that in here? I remember seeing it several places, but I don't remember it saying flashing. I thought it said no lights in windows in several places.
It's no, sir, it's flashing.
That's fine then. You're good to go. I agree with that.
And to get to your campaign signs question, I know that's always the fun one. We did not change our campaign sign requirements. They are not allowed in city right of ways. That is something that we stress to all the candidates locally. Normally the local candidates do a very good job of respecting that. And many times we even have them call if they've got a question about a right of way, they'll call us and find out how wide a right of way is in some neighborhood. The issue that we typically have is with statewide or federal offices where they hire somebody to go and blanket a community with signs. They put them wherever they want. I saw them this weekend. I went out to my parents out Buck Swamp, and as I was driving down 17 over the bridge, one of a statewide candidate had already started putting out campaign signs on state right of way from Jekyll Island all the way out to exit 29. That is illegal in our code. And when we find those, we take them. We contact the candidates' offices. If we feel like it needs to be a citation situation, we cite them. And like I said, though, our local candidates have been great. They were really good in the last election up until the runoff. And after the runoff, it was Katie bar the door.
Well, I really think there ought to be something in here specifying campaign signs and
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong.
They're to be on private property and not on right of ways.
Well, that's any signage. So, there's no signage.
What's wrong with putting campaign signs in here, John?
He want a separate category.
If I recall, Brian, we've had discussions about specifying campaign signs, and there's some issues with that.
Let me tell you, 6 months after my runoff election, there were campaign signs still up on the corners on county and city right of ways. And almost every it's a problem. And I think we need to address it here. And also, I would recommend, whatever we do, asking the Board of Elections if they would hand it out when people come to sign up to qualify. They give out our ordinance and our specifications.
I think we do that for city candidates already. I don't know if we do them.
Well, I don't think I've ever gotten one, but again, it is a problem, and it costs us money not to be able to maintain our right of ways because these signs are out there. And I tell you, the state is very rigorous, and you can ask Commissioner Martin how many signs she picked up for me and how many I picked up for her going out in 99. But we're not with the city, and I think we need to reinforce that in this ordinance writing. So anyway, I'll leave it there. This is not my decision alone, but I recommend doing that. How much money do we have in this project so far, John?
You caught me off guard with that question, Commissioner. I believe
all right.
I've gotten quarterly invoices now for, I believe, a total of maybe $13,000 or $14,000.
Just a refresher, how much did we approve for this project?
I believe it was 25,000.
Okay, that's good. That's sufficient. So
we've gotten our money's worth from these folks.
I agree with that. I just needed a little refreshing. Thank you.
So it says they don't need to exceed 25%, but then you don't have one sign.
So if that's in a situation where you have a window and multiple tenants, whatever combination that you use for signage stays under that 25. Did you say 20 or 25? 25%.
Six people, 6 signs.
Right. Right.
Okay.
So you allow for multiple tenants each to have a sign, and each one of those needs to stay under that 25%. However, I think if that then actually triggers above a total of 40%, then it's a permanent sign.
Oh, okay, so the allowance is you have to get a permit if you don't follow.
Right, exactly.
Are there further questions? Commissioner Casey, did he answer your question?
He did, and thank you very much, John.
Thanks, Commissioner.
No problem. I think also, being that was the first reading of our sign ordinance, people can come back at our next meeting, and they have some comments or questions, they can present those as well. And this is first reading for this amendment to this ordinance. So I will open up a public hearing for anyone here who would like to speak for or speak your opinion about the amendment to City of Brunswick Code Ordinance Section 23-3-21 concerning buffering requirement. If you're here, you'd like to speak, please step forward, state your name, your address, and I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes. And also, we'll be monitoring the chat to see if you're there too, you will get the same, or you afford the same rights. There's no one in the chat, so thank you, Madam Clerk. There's no one come forward. We're hearing crickets here too as well. So we would declare that this public hearing is over. And since this is the first reading for this amendment as well, you all will get an opportunity to view it online and also make comments if you would before we get an opportunity to vote on it, yay or nay. So, Mr. City Attorney, is that all the items you have, sir? Okay, I hope I was.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been a motion and probably seconded for adjournment. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposes, you'll be here by yourself. That motion carries. Okay, we stand adjourned.
Good night. Thank you.